Hey, howdy guys. In this video, we are going to see what if Harry's soulmate was Slytherin. So watch till end and don't worry guys, I will be not hosting the whole video. I am only here for the intro. So hope you will enjoy the video and don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. Now let's jump right into the video.
Scene 1, a champion who can't breathe. By the time November settled into Hogwarts like a damp cloak, Harry had started to measure his days and glances. Glances from students in the corridor, some bright with awe, some sharp with envy, some hungry for drama. Glances from older witches who had never spoken to him before but now smiled like he was a ticket to excitement. Glances from teachers that tried to be normal and failed. And then there were the glances from the staff table, the kind that said, "Please don't die on school grounds." Harry hated those most. He left the Gryffindor common room after dinner with the invisible weight of 100 opinions pressing against his spine. Ron and Hermione were still inside arguing again about practice schedules, homework, and how many times a person could read dragons or not to be approached before it stopped being helpful. Harry didn't want to argue. Harry didn't want to practice. Harry didn't want to be brave. He wanted quiet. Outside, the castle breathed cold air. The torches flared when he passed, their flames bending in the draft like they were bowing out of the way. The corridor stones were slick with old winter damp. Somewhere far above, the wind rattled a window like knuckles against glass. Harry walked faster. He went down the marble staircase, ignoring the portraits that whispered his name, ignoring Peeves who had recently discovered it was very funny to sing songs about Potty the Champion. He turned down a corridor that led away from most of the evening foot traffic. His footsteps echoed in the near-empty hall. His scar didn't hurt. That almost made it worse. Because the scar had become, in his mind, a kind of horrible clock. Pain meant danger. Pain meant Voldemort. Pain meant something he could point at and tell himself, "This is real. This is why I'm terrified." But lately it was only fear, shapeless and constant. The last task had been dragons. He'd survived by the skin of his teeth and a broomstick. The second task was coming. The lake was involved. Everyone whispered it. Cedric had a theory. Fleur had been seen stalking along the shore like she might hex the water into obeying her. Victor Crumb had vanished, so often the Durmstrang students looked like they were missing a weapon. Harry had no idea what he was supposed to do. He only knew one thing. If he stayed near people, they'd look at him like a story. If he stayed alone, he could almost remember he was just a boy. The grounds were dark when he stepped out, but the sky had that faint, bruised color it got before snow. Hogwarts rose behind him, towers, cutting in a cloud like fingers. Harry didn't head for Hagrid's hut. Not tonight. Hagrid would try to comfort him, and Harry would pretend it was working, and then he'd go back to the castle with his fear still tucked inside his ribs. Instead, he walked toward the Black Lake. He told himself it was practical. The second task was in the lake. He should look at the lake. But if he was being honest, he'd chosen it because it was the only place at Hogwarts that could feel bigger than his problems. The shore came into view, a ribbon of dark water swallowing the last of the fading light. The lake looked like ink spilled across the earth. The surface was smooth in places, rippling in others like something beneath it was turning over in sleep. Harry stopped a few yards from the edge, hands shoved deep in his pockets, breath puffing white. His reflection didn't appear. Not in the water, anyway. It was too dark for that. He stared out across it, and his thoughts began to loosen, not disappear, exactly, but untangle. He could hear the distant sound of the castle, muted, a door slamming, a laugh, the faint boom of footsteps. Out here, the world couldn't crowd him. He found a flat stone and sat, letting the cold seep through his robes. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, and tried to picture the second task. Breathe underwater, he thought bitterly. That'll do it. Just grow gills. Like a fish. Like a champion. His fingers twitched around his wand in his pocket. He didn't know how long he sat there, long enough for his shoulders to stop being tight, long enough for the wind to find every gap in his robes and complain about it. And then, A soft, controlled sound snapped the quiet. Crack. Not a branch. Not ice. A spell. Harry's head lifted sharply. The sound came from the trees that edged the lake, where the shadows were deeper and the air seemed colder, as if it didn't want to be touched. Harry narrowed his eyes. Another sound. Whum. Something heavy struck something solid. Harry stood, instinct pulling him upright before his brain caught up. He slipped his wand into his hand and moved toward the sound, careful not to crunch the frosted grass too loudly. The trees opened onto a small clearing he hadn't noticed before. Not much of one, just a space where the ground dipped slightly and the roots formed natural boundaries. And there, in the center of it, stood a girl. She wasn't tall, but she carried herself like someone who would rather be taller than everyone else's expectations. Her hair was dark and pinned back in a way that looked efficient rather than pretty. The moonlight caught the edge of her face, pale, angular, composed. In her hand was a wand. In front of her, floating 3 feet off the ground, was a large, rough stone probably pulled from the lake's edge. The stone was ringed in shimmering hexagonal patterns, thin panes of light that flashed like glass when the stone slammed into them. The girl's wand moved sharply. The stone shot forward. It hit the barrier with a dull thud and bounced off, rotating as if it had hit something solid. The hexagonal light flared, then settled. The girl didn't blink. She adjusted her wrist. Her mouth moved in a silent count. Then she flicked her wand again. The barrier shifted, reshaping itself, layers sliding like scales. The stone slammed again. This time, it didn't bounce. It stopped completely, hanging in midair like it had been pinned to an invisible wall. The girl's jaw tightened, like she'd dared the spell to fail and had made the wise choice. Harry froze at the edge of the clearing, watching. He'd seen shields before. He'd cast them. He'd even gotten decent at them under pressure. But this wasn't a simple protego. This looked like someone had taken the idea of protection and turned it into architecture. Harry took an unconscious step forward. A twig snapped under his shoe. The girl's head turned so fast, it was like a blade cutting through air. Her wand came up, aimed directly at his chest. "Don't," she said. The word wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Harry lifted both hands, one still holding his wand, but pointed down. "It's me," he said, because that was apparently what people said when they wanted you not to hex them. "Harry." The girl didn't lower her wand. Her eyes were sharp in the moonlight gray-green, maybe. Hard to tell. Her expression didn't change, but Harry felt the strange pressure of being evaluated. "Harry," she repeated, like she was tasting the name for poison. "Of course." She didn't sound impressed. That, oddly, was the first thing about her that made Harry feel less like a spectacle. He started, then realized he hadn't planned a reason for being here beyond. I didn't want to fall apart in front of anyone. That didn't sound like something he wanted to say to a stranger with a wand aimed at him. "I heard spells." "You heard spells," she echoed, her tone suggesting most people heard with their ears, and he'd used his entire face. Harry's mouth tightened. "You're practicing." "Congratulations." There was a pause. The stone still hovered, pinned in front of her shield. Harry should have left. He told himself that. But the air in the clearing felt strange. Not because of the magic. Magic was everywhere at Hogwarts. It was something else. A tension. A hum. He'd felt it once before on the Hogwarts Express, when the Dementors had swept past and the world had turned cold and wrong. This wasn't cold. It was still, like the space between them was holding its breath. Harry swallowed. "You're good." The girl's eyes narrowed fractionally. Observation skills are clearly not tied to tournament selection. Harry's cheeks warmed. "Who are you?" he asked, because if he didn't speak, the silence would swallow him. The girl held his gaze for a long moment. Then, slowly, she lowered her wand. But she didn't relax. That was the kind of movement that said, I can raise it again faster than you can blink. Isolde Rosier, she said. Harry's stomach did a small, unpleasant twist. Rosier. That was a name he'd heard in whispers, sometimes in the same breath as old families and pure blood politics and Death Eater trials. Moody had mentioned it once, Harry thought. Or maybe it had been serious. Someone had said it like it had teeth. Harry's expression must have shifted because Isolde's mouth curved not a smile, exactly, but something that acknowledged she'd gotten the reaction she expected. There it is, she said quietly. The flinch. Harry bristled. I didn't flinch. You did. You're your family, Harry began, then stopped because he suddenly didn't want to sound like Ron. He didn't want to sound like every person who looked at a Slytherin and decided they already knew the ending. Isolde tilted her head. Say it. Harry's grip tightened on his wand. People say lots of things. Her voice sharpened slightly. Say what you were going to say. Harry felt the pressure in his scar, not pain, not burning, but a faint prickling that made his skin crawl. Like a warning. Like a change. He hated that his body reacted before his mind did. He forced his voice steady. People say Rosiers were connected. To Voldemort. Isolde's eyes didn't flicker. But something in the air shifted. A microscopic change, like the moment before a storm breaks. My uncle was, she said, estranged. Minor, if you believe the Ministry's convenient labels. He liked attention. The Dark Lord offered him an entire stage. Harry stared. The bluntness was unexpected. Isolde's wand moved. The pinned stone dropped softly to the ground as the shield dissolved, its hexagonal panes fading into nothing. And if you're here to threaten me or interrogate me, she continued, I suggest you find an Auror and bring them. Hogwarts is full of people who like pretending they're brave. Harry opened his mouth, then closed it. Because he hadn't come here to threaten her. He hadn't come here for her at all. And yet, the humming stillness hadn't gone away. Harry exhaled slowly. I'm not here for that. Isolde studied him again. Then why are you here, Potter? Harry almost snapped because I can't breathe in my own life right now. But instead he said to think. Dangerous habit. Harry blinked. What? Isolde shrugged slightly. Thinking leads to conclusions. Conclusions lead to action. Action leads to consequences. And consequences, her eyes flicked over him, quick and clinical. Have a habit of finding you. Harry should have been annoyed. He wasn't. He felt seen, not as the boy who lived, or the champion, or that kid who attracts tragedy. Just as a person with too many consequences attached. He swallowed. You're out here alone. So are you. Harry hesitated. Aren't you worried about? About you? Isolde's eyebrow rose. Harry flushed. No, about the lake. Isolde's gaze slid toward the dark water visible through the trees. The lake is predictable. It has rules. People are improvisations. Harry let out a quiet laugh before he could stop himself. It surprised him so much he brought a hand up to his mouth like he could shove the sound back inside. Isolde looked mildly offended. Is that funny? It's just Harry lowered his hand. That's not how most people talk. Most people, Isolde said flatly, are comfortable being wrong in groups. Harry stared at her. The humming in the air pulsed once, faintly, like a string plucked. And Harry realized, suddenly, that he could feel something else too. Not her thoughts, not her magic, but her presence clearer than it had any right to be, like the air around her had a shape. His scar prickled again, sharper this time, and he flinched despite himself. Isolde noticed immediately. What? She asked, voice low. Harry rubbed his forehead. Nothing. It's my scar sometimes. I know what it does, Isolde said. It's famous. Harry's hand stilled. Right? Isolde's eyes narrowed at his tone. If you're going to sulk, do it properly. Sit down. Harry blinked. What? Isolde pointed at a fallen log near the edge of the clearing. If you're going to keep standing there like a lost ghost, at least make yourself useful and stop blocking my field of practice. Harry stared, Then, because the alternative was leaving and returning to the castle with the same heaviness, he stepped forward and sat on the log. The wood was cold through his robes. Isolde returned to the center of the clearing and flicked her wand. The stone lifted again, hovering obediently. Harry watched, fascinated despite himself. "What spell is that?" he asked. Isolde didn't look at him. "A modified barrier weave." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you get for free," she said, then added with faint irritation, "It's based on Protego Maxima, layered and reorganized. It holds shape under kinetic impact." Harry frowned. "Why?" Isolde finally glanced at him like he was slow. "Because impact is what breaks shields. Most spells don't fail because they are weak. They fail because they are predictable." Harry's brain clicked. "You're building it like a structure." Isolde's expression shifted tiny, but real. "Approval, maybe." "Yes." Harry leaned forward slightly. Are you using arithmancy?" Isolde's lips pressed together. "Among other things." Harry couldn't help it. "That's brilliant." Isolde stared at him for a beat, then looked away. Brilliant is a word people use when they want to admire something without understanding it. Harry flushed again. "I'm trying to understand." "Are you?" Isolde asked, voice sharp with something that sounded uncomfortably like sincerity. "Or are you trying to feel better about being lost?" The question hit like a stone dropped into still water. Harry's chest tightened. Then, before he could stop himself, he said, "I don't know what I'm doing." Isolde's one hand paused midair. Harry swallowed and forced himself to keep going because something about this clearing this girl made lying feel pointless. "I survived the dragon," he said quietly. "But I didn't win. I just survived. And everyone keeps acting like I'm supposed to be ready for whatever comes next. But I'm not. I'm—" He stopped because he didn't know what word fit. Afraid. Tired. Angry. All of them at once. Isolde's wand lowered a fraction. The stone floated there, forgotten. For a moment, her face softened not into kindness, exactly, into understanding. "You're unprepared," she said. Harry blinked. Of all the responses. "I know," he snapped, heat flaring. "That's what I just—" Isolde cut him off. "You're unprepared because you're being trained like a Gryffindor." Harry froze. Isolde stepped toward him, boots crunching lightly on frost. Her voice dropped. "Bravery is not a plan. It is a reaction. You can't build strategy out of panic." Harry stared at her, heart thumping. She stopped a few feet away, close enough that he could see the faint shadows under her eyes. She looked tired too, he realized. Not like someone who'd stayed up reading for fun, but like someone who carried pressure the way he did. "People think Slytherin means cruelty," she said. "It doesn't. It means survival. It means seeing the board." Harry's scar prickled again, and this time the sensation didn't feel like warning. It felt like recognition. Like his body had just remembered something his mind hadn't been told. Isolde's eyes flicked to his forehead. "Stop touching it." Harry dropped his hand. "I wasn't." "You were," Isolde said. "You keep doing it when you're cornered." Harry stared. "How do you know that?" Isolde hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Then her jaw set. "Because I watch things. That is how people stay alive." The air between them thrummed faint, invisible, undeniable. Harry swallowed. "Why are you watching me?" Isolde's gaze snapped to his, and for the first time her composure cracked, not into fear, but into something like frustration. "Because I can't stop," she said quietly. Harry's breath caught. She didn't look like she meant it romantically. She looked like she meant it the way someone means gravity. Harry forced his voice to work. "That doesn't make sense." "It doesn't have to," Isolde replied, but her tone had changed. Less sharp, more careful. "Some things just happen." Harry stared at her, and the humming silence in the clearing grew louder in his bones, like a chord building toward resolution. His scar prickled again, and his vision swam for half a second. Not a vision, not like the ones Voldemort dragged through his head. Just a flash of feeling, cold lake water, green silk, the echo of footsteps in a corridor, and a hand reaching for his. Harry blinked hard, and it was gone. Isolde was watching him like she'd felt something too. What was that? Harry whispered. Isolde's throat bobbed as she swallowed. I don't know. Harry took a shaky breath. Is this? He didn't know what to call it. Fate sounded stupid. Magic sounded too broad. But the word that rose in his mind was the one he'd heard in whispers between older students, the one they said with giggles or dread. Soulmate, Harry said, the word coming out rough. Isolde's eyes didn't widen. That was the strangest part. It was as if she'd been waiting for him to say it, so she could stop pretending it wasn't there. I hate that word, she said. Harry blinked. Why? Because it makes people think it's about romance, Isolde said, and her voice sharpened again like she was grabbing control back with both hands. It makes them think it's soft. It's not. It's binding. Harry's mouth went dry. Binding. Like a vow. Like a chain. The idea should have terrified him. It did. But underneath the fear, there was something else. Relief. Because for the first time in months, the world made a new kind of sense, not safer, but clearer. Like he'd been stumbling through fog and someone had lit a lantern. Isolde stepped back, as if realizing she'd gotten too close. Her face settled into that composed mask again. You should go, she said. Harry didn't move. Why? Because Isolde replied, if you stay, you'll start asking questions. And I have no interest in becoming your emotional experiment. Harry's eyebrows shot up. My what? Isolde's mouth twitched. You Gryffindors collect dramatic friendships like trophies. Harry bristled. I don't. Isolde raised a hand. You do. It's your entire house identity. Harry opened his mouth, then shut it. Because maybe she wasn't wrong. Ron and Hermione had become his world. The idea of adding someone else felt almost like betrayal. And yet, the humming didn't stop when she stepped away. If anything, it tightened like the thread between them had been stretched and didn't like it. Harry stood. Isolde's eyes narrowed instantly, wand shifting in her grip. Don't. I'm not going to hex you, Harry said, exasperated. You're unpredictable, Isolde replied. Harry let out a slow breath. So are you. Isolde stared at him like he'd insulted her. Harry didn't back down. He wasn't sure where the courage came from, maybe from exhaustion, maybe from the strange pull between them, maybe from the fact that she wasn't treating him like a fragile hero story. He stepped closer, careful and deliberate, stopping at a distance that felt right. Not too close, not too far. I don't want an experiment, Harry said. I don't even know what I want, but I know I'm tired of being treated like I'm not a person. Isolde's gaze flickered. Her grip on her wand loosened slightly. Harry swallowed. And I don't know why this is happening, but I think you felt it too. For a moment, Isolde looked almost younger, like the mask had slipped and revealed someone who hadn't asked for this any more than he had. Then she inhaled and steadied herself. Yes, she said quietly. I felt it. The admission landed between them like a stone dropped into water, heavy, undeniable, rippling outward. Harry's scar prickled once more, and this time it didn't feel like Voldemort at all. It felt like a door clicking into place. Isolde looked away first. This changes nothing. Harry let out a harsh, humorless laugh. It changes everything. Isolde's jaw tightened. You don't understand what you're inviting. Then explain it, Harry said. You seem good at that. Isolde shot him a look that could have peeled paint. Then she said, people will assume you've been manipulated. Harry's stomach sank. He didn't need help imagining that. Ron will lose his mind. He already loses his mind, Isolde said flatly. This will simply give him a theme. Harry snorted despite himself. Isolde watched him carefully. They will say I'm using you. That I'm a rosier and therefore dangerous. That you're naive. That you're lonely. Harry's chest tightened. Because that last one was true. Isolde's voice softened, almost unwillingly. They will be cruel. Harry met her eyes. They already are. Something shifted in Isolde's expression and emotion she didn't let show often. Respect, maybe, or shared bitterness. Then the silence returned. Not awkward, not empty, just present. Harry glanced toward the lake through the trees. The water lay there like a secret. He looked back at Isolde. The words came out before he could overthink them. Will you go to the ball with me? Isolde froze. Harry's heart lurched. He hadn't meant to say it like that, not so suddenly, not like a boy with no plan. But maybe that was the only honest way. Isolde stared at him as if he'd cast a spell. You're asking, she said slowly me. Harry swallowed. Yes. Isolde's eyes narrowed. Why? Harry could have lied. He could have said it was strategic. He could have said it would shock the school. He could have said it would make the other champions nervous. He could have made it sound clever. Instead, he said, because when I'm near you, I can breathe. The words were so true, they embarrassed him. Isolde's expression flickered shock, anger, something softer, something afraid. Then she looked away, toward the lake, like she needed the darkness to think. Harry waited, stomach twisting. After a long moment, Isolde spoke. If I say yes, she said quietly, you will regret it. Harry didn't hesitate. Maybe, but I'll regret it more if I don't ask. Isolde turned back, and for the first time her sharp tongue didn't come to her rescue. She looked at him like she was seeing not the legend, not the champion, but the boy under all the noise. Then she lifted her chin slightly. Yes, she said. Harry's breath left him in a rush he hadn't realized he was holding. Isolde's eyes hardened immediately, as if she'd given herself one moment of softness and was now punishing herself for it. Don't smile, she warned. Harry tried not to. He failed. Isolde's mouth twitched like she wanted to be annoyed, but couldn't quite manage it. Fine, she said briskly. But understand this, Potter, you do not get to treat me like a symbol. I'm not your rebellion. I'm not your tragedy. I'm not your charity. Harry nodded, serious now. Okay. Isolde's gaze sharpened. And if you want to survive this tournament, really survive it, you'll meet me here every other evening. You'll practice what I tell you. You'll stop relying on luck. Harry's stomach flipped. Not fear. Not exactly. Something like hope that had been disguised as dread for so long, he almost didn't recognize it. Okay, Harry said again. Isolde's eyes narrowed as if she didn't trust how easily he agreed. Good. Then leave before someone sees you and assumes something ridiculous. Harry hesitated, then said, Isn't this already ridiculous? Isolde's expression didn't soften, but her voice did just a fraction. Yes, she said. That's why it's dangerous. Harry turned to go, then paused. He looked back. Isolde was already lifting her wand again, calling the stone into motion, rebuilding her shield like it was the only thing keeping her steady. But when Harry stepped out of the clearing, the humming thread between them didn't fade. It followed him. Not like a chain, like a path. And for the first time in a long time, Harry walked back toward the castle feeling like the world had shifted quietly, irrevocably into a shape he hadn't expected. A shape that somehow fit. Scene 1, the invitation that broke the common room. The Gryffindor common room was loud in that particular way it got when everyone was pretending they weren't stressed. Fourth years and up were clustered in groups, some sprawled on the floor with parchment, others huddled near the fire like warmth could fix their lives. A few girls were flipping through Witch Weekly with the intensity of revision, pausing on dress robes like they were studying for an exam. Someone had enchanted a chessboard to mutter insults under its breath. Someone else had put up a small banner that read, Yule Ball Countdown, 11 days. It felt like the entire room had been infected by a single thought. Who will you go with? As if the Triwizard Tournament wasn't already enough. Harry stepped through the portrait hole and immediately regretted having a face. Several heads turned. Some people still looked at him like he'd personally invented chaos. Others looked like they were waiting for entertainment. Ron was at a table with Dean and Seamus, half listening, half scowling into a mug. Hermione was nearby, writing with furious purpose, as if she could stab her quill through the concept of romance and be done with it. Harry walked toward them, trying to look casual. His stomach was doing that unpleasant flip it always did when he had to say something that would cause a reaction. Hermione looked up first. "Where have you been?" "Out," Harry said. Ron grunted. "Brilliant. Out. You've been doing that a lot." Harry sat down slowly. "I needed air." Hermione's eyes narrowed. "You've been avoiding people." Harry didn't deny it. Ron leaned forward, elbows on the table. "So? You gonna ask someone or what? The ball's in, what, 11 days?" Harry's throat went dry. Hermione's cool paused mid-stroke. He realized, suddenly, that this was going to feel like dropping a stone into glass. "I asked someone," Harry said. Ron's face brightened instantly. "Yeah? Who?" Hermione's expression sharpened. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't disapproving either. More like she wanted to see if Harry had a plan. Harry inhaled. Isolde Rosier. The room didn't go silent. But Harry's world did. Ron stared like Harry had just announced he'd decided to marry a blast-ended screw. "Who?" Ron said. Harry didn't look away. "Isolde Rosier. Slytherin." Ron blinked once. Then twice. Then his voice exploded loud enough to make the nearby first years flinch. "You what?" Hermione's eyes widened slightly, not shock at the house, but at the name. She had that look she got when a detail clicked into place in her brain and she didn't like what it implied. "Rosier?" Hermione said quietly. As in Rosier," Ron snapped, looking like he was 1 second away from standing on the table. "Harry, are you mad? That's she's a Slytherin," Harry finished, calm but hard. He could feel something in his chest tightening, anger. Yes, but also that strange thread he'd felt by the lake. Like his body didn't want to be pushed backward. Ron's face reddened. "She's a snake, Harry or Rosier." Harry's jaw set. "You don't even know her." Ron's laugh was sharp and ugly. "I don't need to know her. I know what she is." Harry felt heat flare behind his ribs. And at the exact same time, a faint sensation touched his awareness. Not a thought, not a voice. A pulse of cold irritation, distant but unmistakable, like someone had tugged the string tied to his spine. Harry froze. Hermione noticed. "Harry?" He forced his face neutral. "Nothing." Ron kept going, words piling up like bricks. "This is exactly what they want you walking around with some pure blood Slytherin on your arm, like you're one of them." "I'm not one of anything," Harry said, voice low. "I'm trying to survive a tournament I didn't enter. And for once, I picked someone who didn't look at me like I was a charity case or a trophy." Ron's mouth opened, then closed. Hermione leaned forward. "Harry, why her?" Harry hesitated, because the real answer wasn't something he could explain without sounding insane. "Because when I'm near her, I can breathe." So he said the second truest thing. "Because she's smart," Harry replied. "Because she doesn't treat me like I'm breakable." Ron slammed his palm on the table. "You don't get it. You can't trust Slytherins." Hermione's voice cut through firm. "That's not fair, Ron." Ron turned on her like he'd been waiting for an ally. "Oh, brilliant. You're defending her too now?" "I'm defending logic," Hermione said, cheeks pink with irritation. "If Harry's going with a Slytherin, we should at least understand why, not just shout." Ron's gaze snapped back to Harry. "This is her manipulating you." Harry stood so fast his chair scraped loudly against stone. "I'm not being manipulated," Harry said. "And I'm not going to sit here and listen to you talk about someone you've never spoken to like she's a monster." Ron stood too, face inches from Harry's. "You're making a mistake." Harry held his ground. "Maybe, but it's mine." The thread inside him hummed again, faint, tense, like a warning bell that didn't feel like Voldemort. Hermione rose half out of her chair, hands lifted. "Stop, both of you." Harry grabbed his bag. Ron's voice followed, furious. "You're really going to parade around with a Rosier? Do you want everyone to think you've joined the dark side?" Harry paused at the portrait hole. He didn't turn around. "Let them think," he said quietly. Then he climbed through, leaving behind the warmth of the fire and the crack in a room that had just formed thin as ice, but spreading. Scene 2, the girl who didn't flinch. The next evening, the sky was white with impending snow. Hogwarts looked carved from cold. Harry went down to the Black Lake with his scarf pulled high and his wand tucked inside his sleeve. The thread inside him was already humming, not loud, but constant, like it had been waiting all day. He reached the clearing. Isolde was there, exactly where she'd been the first time. Same posture, same focus, same feeling that she belonged more to strategy than to people. A stone hovered in front of her, and a barrier shimmered like layered glass. She didn't look at him until he stepped into the clearing. Then her eyes flicked up, assessing. "You're late," she said. Harry blinked. "I'm what? It's been 5 minutes." "You are 5 minutes behind your own survival," Isolde replied, as if that was a normal sentence. Harry exhaled. "Right. Okay. Sorry." Isolde's wand moved. The barrier dissolved. The stone fell softly. "Did you tell your friends?" she asked. Harry hesitated. "Yes." Isolde's expression didn't change, and they reacted as expected. Harry's mouth tightened. "Ron did." "Of course he did." Isolde stepped closer, her eyes sharp. "And you defended me." Harry's chest tightened. "How did you?" Isolde raised a hand. "Don't. I don't know how. I know that." Harry swallowed. That thread again tight, aware. Isolde's voice cooled. "This is what I meant by dangerous. Your house will not forgive you easily. Mine will not tolerate me." Harry frowned. "Why would your house care?" Isolde's mouth curved slightly, humorless. "Because Slytherin is a court. Everything is politics. They will assume I'm making a move." Harry stared. "Are you?" Isolde's eyes narrowed, and for half a second Harry thought she'd snap. Instead, she said quietly, "I don't know what I'm doing." The admission startled him more than any insult would have. Isolde recovered immediately, voice brisk. "But I know what you're doing. You are panicking." Harry bristled. "I'm not." "You are," Isolde said, cutting him off. "You think bravery is your only tool. It isn't. It's just the tool you were handed first." Harry exhaled sharply. "Then what's the other tool?" Isolde lifted her wand. "Preparation." She flicked. The stone rose again, hovering between them. "Show me your Protego." Harry's stomach twisted. He raised his wand and cast Protego. A shield shimmered in a place thin, slightly curved, wavering at the edges. Isolde didn't react. She simply snapped her wand. The stone launched forward like a cannonball. Harry's shield held for half a second. Then it shattered with a crack like breaking ice. The stone stopped a foot from Harry's face, suspended midair by Isolde's magic, as if she'd decided not to let it finish the lesson. Harry's breath caught. Isolde tilted her head. "Your shield is honest," she said. Harry blinked. "That's good?" "No," Isolde said. "It means it reflects you, and you are predictable." Harry's cheeks burned. "I'm not predictable." Isolde's eyes flicked over him. "You flinch when someone raises their voice. You tighten your grip on your wand when you're cornered. Your first instinct is to protect others even when it's illogical. You don't lie well, and you treat danger like it's a test of courage rather than a problem to solve." Harry stared, half offended and half unnerved. "How do you know all that?" he demanded. Isolde's gaze sharpened. "Because you wear it like a Gryffindor banner." Harry clenched his jaw. Then, despite himself, he asked, "Can you teach me?" Isolde's expression shifted something like surprise, quickly masked. "Teaching implies patience," she said. "I have very little." Harry almost laughed. "Even noticed." Isolde's mouth twitched like it might have been amused, but she swallowed it down. "I can make you functional," she said instead. "Not comfortable, not heroic, functional." Harry's chest eased just slightly. "I'll take functional." Isolde flicked her wand. The stone drifted back. "Again," she said. Harry raised his wand, jaw set. "Protego." The shield formed again. This time, Harry pictured it as a wall, not a bubble. The edges steadied. Isolde watched. Better. She launched the stone. The shield held longer 2 seconds. Then it cracked. Harry grimaced. Isolde sighed like someone watching a slow process and hating that time existed. Stop trying to be strong, she said. Start trying to be correct. Harry's eyebrows knit. What does that mean? It means you don't win by forcing magic, Isolde said. You win by shaping it. She stepped closer, raising her wand so the tip hovered near his shield. Imagine your shield as a pattern, she murmured. A weave, not a slab, not a dome, a weave that can move. Harry's breath fogged in the cold. He focused. The shimmering surface of his shield shifted slightly, rippling. Isolde's eyes narrowed, pleased despite herself. Yes, she said. Now when it hits, let's slide. Harry swallowed. Isolde snapped her wand. The stone slammed forward. Harry's shield flexed, bent, the force sliding across its surface. And the stone bounced away, skidding through the air. Harry's eyes widened. How did I? Isolde cut him off. Yes, you did. Don't celebrate. Do it again. Harry couldn't stop the grin anyway. And this time, the pulse in his awareness wasn't irritation. It was something tighter, warmer, like reluctant approval. Harry felt it like sunlight on skin. He stared at Isolde, startled. Isolde looked away too quickly. Focus, she snapped. If you keep staring at me like that, I'll throw the stone at your head without stopping it. Harry swallowed a laugh. Right? Sorry. Isolde's shoulders eased a fraction, like she'd been bracing for something and Harry had stepped away from it. Good, she said coldly, returning to the lesson. Again. Scene 3 serpents at the ball. The night of the Yule Ball arrived like a spell cast over the castle. The Great Hall had been transformed into a winter dream, snow falling from the ceiling that didn't melt, glittering ice sculptures, enchanted branches heavy with silver frost. The air smelled like pine and spice sweets. Music drifted through the doors like something out of another world. Harry stood at the entrance corridor with his stomach in knots and his dress robes, feeling like he'd been wrapped in someone else's expectations. Ron was nearby, tugging at his own robes like they were trying to strangle him. Hermione wasn't there, yet she'd disappeared earlier, refusing to say who she was going with. Are you sure about this? Ron muttered, not looking at Harry. His voice was lower than it had been days ago, but the anger hadn't disappeared. It had just settled into a resentful simmer. Harry didn't answer. Ron scoffed. Typical. The doors to the corridor shifted as more students gathered. Laughter, excited whispers. Then, Harry felt it before he saw her. That humming thread inside him tightened, pulling his attention like a hand on his collar. He turned. Isolde Rosier walked toward him from the opposite end of the corridor. She didn't float like Fleur. She didn't swagger like some girls did when they wanted to be seen. She walked like someone who knew people were looking and refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing it matter. Her robes were deep green, not bright but dark as pine needles, with subtle silver accents that caught the light only when she moved. Her hair was pinned back, but a few strands framed her face like they'd escaped on purpose. Around her neck was a thin chain, nothing flashy, but old, the kind of thing that had history. Slytherins behind her murmured. A few laughed. Pansy Parkinson, unmistakable even from a distance, watched Isolde like she'd found a new scandal to chew on. Draco Malfoy stood with his usual group, pale and sharp, eyes narrowed as if he couldn't decide whether Isolde was brave or stupid. Isolde stopped in front of Harry. For 1 second, her eyes flicked over him, taking in the ill-fitting robes, the tension in his shoulders, the way he looked like he was about to face a dragon rather than a dance. Her mouth curved slightly. You look like you're waiting for a funeral, she said. Harry blinked. Is that good? No, Isolde replied, but it's honest. Harry swallowed, then managed, you look nice. Isolde's eyebrow rose. You sound shocked. Harry flushed. I meant. I know what you meant, Isolde said, and for half a heartbeat her voice softened. Thank you. Harry's chest loosened. Then the doors to the Great Hall opened. The wave hit instantly. Whispers surged like a living thing. Harry felt heads turn, felt eyes dig into his skin. He wanted to flinch. He didn't, because his soul didn't. She slipped her arm through his firm, controlled, not clinging, and leaned close enough that only he could hear. "Do not look down," she murmured. "If you look down, you let them decide you're ashamed." Harry swallowed hard and lifted his chin. Together, they stepped into the Great Hall. The reaction was exactly what Harry had expected and worse. It wasn't one single gasp. It was hundreds of small noises, the intake of breath, the start of laughter, the sharp whisper of names. Potter Rosier. Is that no way? What is he doing? Harry's ears burned. He forced himself to keep walking. Isolde's grip on his arm tightened, slightly not a plea, but a reminder: hold steady. They walked down the aisle toward the staff table, where the champions were expected to enter. Cedric Diggory stood nearby, looking handsome and slightly amused. He raised his eyebrows at Harry, then gave a faint, respectful nod. "You've got nerve," the gesture seemed to say. Fleur Delacour flicked a glance at Isolde, expression cool and unreadable. Victor Crumb stared for a moment, then looked away as if this was none of his business. At the Gryffindor table, Ron's face had gone stiff. His ears were red. His mouth was set like stone. Hermione, now seated in Merlin, she looked different. Hair smooth, robes a soft color that made her look older. She was beside Victor Crumb. She looked up at Harry. For a moment, surprise flashed across her face. Then, slowly understanding. Not approval exactly, but recognition of a choice that had weight. Harry's stomach clenched anyway. The champions reached the front. Professor McGonagall stood near the head table, posture strict, eyes sharp. She looked like she was trying not to sigh at the entire existence of teenagers. Her gaze landed on Harry and Isolde. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes narrowed slightly, like she was taking a mental note and deciding to file under complicated. Dumbledore watched with a calm that made Harry suspicious. His blue eyes twinkled like he found this fascinating. Snape's face was a mask of ice, but his eyes flicked to Isolde, then to Harry, and something like calculation passed through them. Harry's scar prickled faintly. Not pain, not Voldemort, just awareness. Isolde leaned closer again. "Ignore them," she murmured. Harry's voice came out tight. "Easy for you to say." Isolde's mouth barely moved. "No, it isn't." Harry glanced at her. For a moment, he saw the tension beneath her calm, the way her shoulders were slightly too squared, the way her jaw was set like she'd bitten down on something bitter. Then the music started. The champions were pushed forward to dance. Harry's mind went blank. "I don't need started." "You do," Isolde cut in, already placing her hand lightly on his shoulder. "Left foot first. Don't step on me." Harry swallowed. They moved. At first, Harry felt like a puppet. Then Isolde whispered, low and precise, like she was guiding him through a duel. "Breathe, not shallow. Again. Stop hunching. Good. Now turn." Harry obeyed. And to his horror, then his surprise, he realized he wasn't ruining it. Isolde moved like she'd learned to dance the same way she learned spells. Not for fun, but because it was a skill. Efficient. Controlled. Harry's feet stopped panicking. His hands stopped shaking. The whispers didn't stop. But the thread between them, steady and humming, made it feel like the whispers were outside a glass wall. Isolde glanced up at him. "Better," she said softly. Harry's mouth twitched. "You say that like I'm a homework assignment." Isolde's eyes narrowed. "You're worse. Homework listens." Harry let out a quiet laugh. And then, unexpectedly, Isolde's expression softened not into a smile, but into something that looked like she'd almost forgotten she wasn't supposed to enjoy herself. For one heartbeat, they moved together smoothly, perfectly in time. And Harry felt it again, a shared pulse of calm, like their nerves had synchronized. Harry's chest loosened, so suddenly it almost hurt. When the dance ended, applause erupted, some genuine, some mocking. Isolde's hand slipped from his shoulder, but her presence didn't leave. They walked toward the tables. The Slytherin table watched like wolves watching one of their own walk into a trap. The Gryffindor table watched like Harry had betrayed a sacred rule. Isolde didn't pause. She led Harry toward a quieter edge of the room, away from the thickest crowd. "You survived," she said. Harry blinked. "It's a dance." Isolde's eyes flicked over him. "Everything is survival, Potter." Harry exhaled, then said, "You're not letting me call you Isolde in public, are you?" Isolde stared. "Don't push your luck." Harry snorted. For a moment, it almost felt normal. Then Ron approached. His face was tight with anger, or something else hurt. Maybe. "Happy?" Ron demanded, not looking at Isolde, only at Harry. "You got your show." Harry's jaw tightened. "Ron." Isolde stepped slightly forward, not aggressive, just present. Ron's eyes flicked to her, and hatred sparked. "You." Ron spat, finally addressing her. "This is what you wanted, isn't it? Potter on your arm." Isolde's voice cut through like a blade, calm and cold. "What I want is irrelevant. What matters is that you're shouting in a room full of people who will use it against him." Ron faltered for half a second, then flared again. "Don't tell me what's good for Harry." Isolde's eyes narrowed. "Then stop pretending your anger is protection." Ron's face went red. "You." Harry stepped between them. "Ron, stop." Ron stared at him. And in that stare, Harry saw it. Ron wasn't just angry. He was scared. Scared Harry was slipping away from the little team they'd built. Harry's chest tightened. "I'm not abandoning you," Harry said quietly. "But I'm not going to let you decide who I'm allowed to know." Ron's throat bobbed. "So that's it. You choose her." Harry flinched. The words hit like a curse. "I didn't say that," Harry said. Ron's eyes shone with something raw. "You didn't have to." He turned and walked away, shoulders stiff. Harry watched him go, feeling something crack. Then he felt it again, that distant pulse of emotion through the thread. Not triumph. Not smugness. Something sharp and bitter. Isolde's. Harry turned to her. She was staring at the floor, jaw tight. "You're upset," Harry said softly. Isolde's eyes snapped up. "No." Harry hesitated. "Yes, you are." Isolde's nostrils flared. "Don't." Harry's voice was quiet. "I can feel it." Isolde went very still. For a moment, she looked like she might bolt. Then she said, voice low, "I'm not upset because he hates me." Harry's chest tightened. "Then why?" Isolde's gaze flicked away. "Because he's right about one thing." Harry frowned. "What?" Isolde's voice came out tight, like she didn't want to admit it. "You will lose things because of me," she said. Harry stared at her. The thread hummed, taut as wire. Harry swallowed. "Maybe, but I'm not losing you because of them." Isolde's eyes flickered shock and something dangerously close to vulnerability. She blinked once, fast. Then she turned her head slightly, as if scanning the room for threats. "Come," she said briskly. "If we stand here any longer, someone will decide it means something romantic and start writing poetry." Harry let out a strangled laugh. "That would be worse than dragons." Isolde's mouth twitched. "Exactly." Scene 4: Strategy over comfort. Later that night, long after the dancing had blurred into noise and the ball had become less magical and more awkward, Isolde guided Harry out of the great hall and into a quieter corridor. "You're leaving?" Harry asked, surprised. Part of him had expected something else. A conversation. A moment. Isolde's gaze flicked to him, sharp. "Do you want to be cornered by people asking you if we're together?" Harry flushed. "No." "Good," Isolde said. "Then we leave while the crowd is distracted." Harry followed her, and as they walked the corridors, the castle felt different, quieter, more honest. The music faded behind them until it was only a memory. They stopped near a window overlooking the grounds. Snow had started falling, soft and steady. The black lake was a dark shape in the distance. Isolde stared out at it for a moment. Then she said, "You need to prepare for the second task." Harry blinked. "Now." Isolde turned, expression impatient. "The Yule Ball doesn't pause the tournament." Harry sighed. "Right? Of course." Isolde's eyes narrowed. "You hate that I'm right." Harry admitted a bit. Isolde's mouth twitched. "Good. Hate is fuel." Harry rubbed his face. "I don't even know what the second task is." Isolde's eyes sharpened. "But you have the egg." Harry nodded. "And it screams when I open it." Isolde looked mildly offended. "Then you're doing it wrong." Harry blinked. "Excuse me?" Isolde's voice cooled. "The egg is enchanted. The sound is part of the puzzle. It will not be solved by staring at it like a traumatized owl." Harry let out a tired laugh. Isolde reached into her robe pocket and pulled out something small and silver, a simple charm, shaped like a ring. Harry stared. "What is that?" "A muffling charm," Isolde said, "and a privacy filter. You will bring the egg tomorrow evening. We will solve it properly." Harry's pulse spiked. "How do you know how to?" Isolde's eyes narrowed. "I don't know how. I know how to think. There's a difference." Harry opened his mouth, then closed it. Because he couldn't argue. Isolde stepped closer, and the thread between them tightened, quiet, steady. "Listen carefully," she said. "You want comfort. Comfort is a luxury. You don't have it." Harry's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. Isolde's voice lowered. "What you do have is a bond that makes you less alone. That is not weakness. It is leverage." Harry swallowed. "Leverage?" Isolde's eyes flicked to his forehead. "Voldemort uses fear. The tournament uses panic. The school uses gossip. You cannot control those things." She paused, then added more quietly, "But you can control preparation." Harry nodded slowly. Isolde's gaze sharpened again. "Tomorrow, the lake. Bring the egg. And don't get cornered by your friends tonight." Harry's mouth tightened. "Ron already." Isolde cut in blunt. "Ron is not your strategist. Hermione might be, if she stops expecting people to behave." Harry blinked. "That's harsh." Isolde shrugged. "Truth is harsh. Lies are soft and deadly." Harry stared at her. He felt something through the thread tension, yes, but also concern hidden under steel. It made his chest tighten. He said quietly, "Thanks. For tonight." Isolde's eyes flickered. "For the dance?" "For not flinching," Harry said. Isolde's gaze held his for a long moment. Then she said, almost reluctantly, "I flinch. I simply do it where no one can see." Harry swallowed. Isolde turned to go, then paused. Without looking back, she said, "And Potter?" Harry blinked. "Yeah?" Isolde's voice was quieter than it had been all night. "Don't let them make you ashamed." Harry's chest tightened. "I won't," he promised. Isolde gave a small, sharp nod, then disappeared down the corridor like she was returning to a battlefield. Harry stood by the window, watching the snow fall. Inside him, that thread hummed steady now like a heartbeat. And for the first time since his name had come out of the goblet of fire, Harry felt like he wasn't facing the tournament alone. Not because someone would protect him, but because someone would teach him how to protect himself. Scene 1: The mark that burns in silence. June arrived with fake warmth. Hogwarts looked softer under summer light, stone glowing honey gold at sunset, the lake glittering like it had never held anything dangerous, the grass so bright it almost insulted the memory of winter. Harry didn't trust it. The closer the third task got, the more the castle felt like a stage dressing up for a tragedy. He met Isolde by the Black Lake, clearing 2 nights before the maze was due to rise. She was already there when he arrived, wand out, drawing faint geometric patterns in the air that lingered like chalk outlines made of light. Harry had stopped asking what half her spells were called. The names didn't matter as much as the function. Tonight, though, she wasn't practicing. She was still. Too still. Her shoulders were rigid, and her gaze was fixed on the lake like she was daring it to confess something. Harry stepped into the clearing and felt the thread between them tighten instantly like a knot pulled hard. Fear. Not his. Hers. It slid into his awareness, so abruptly Harry almost stumbled. Isolde? He said cautiously. Her head snapped toward him. For a fraction of a second her expression was naked sharp alarm, like she'd been caught without armor. Then it vanished behind cool composure. "You're early," she said. Harry frowned. Yuri stopped himself. He didn't want to say acting weird and get hexed. What happened? Isolde's jaw tightened. Harry felt it again, that pulse of fear, distant but vivid, as if it had been stored in her bones and cracked open. "Nothing," she said. Harry didn't move. "That's a lie." Isolde's eyes narrowed. "Be careful, Potter. I'm not one of your Gryffindor friends. I don't respond well to being challenged for comfort." Harry's chest tightened, but he held her gaze. "I'm not challenging you for comfort," he said quietly. "I'm challenging you because I can feel you." That landed. Isolde went very still, like a person realizing a door they'd been leaning against had been opened. Her fingers flexed around her wand. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she exhaled once, controlled. "My uncle," she said. Harry's stomach dropped. "The Death Eater?" he asked. Isolde's mouth twitched humorless. "Yes, the minor, one the ministry pretends doesn't matter." Harry swallowed. "What about him?" Isolde's gaze drifted past Harry, toward the castle. "He's close." Harry's skin prickled. "Close to Hogwarts?" Isolde nodded once. Close enough that the mark she stopped, jaw clenching harder. "I felt it." Harry's stomach turned cold. "You can feel the dark mark burning?" he asked. Isolde's eyes flashed. "Do you think I wanted to confirm that rumor?" Harry felt her fear again, sharper now, edged with rage. Rage at fate, rage at family, rage at being dragged into something she never asked for. Harry's voice lowered. "What does it mean?" "It means," Isolde said, voice flat, "that the third task isn't just a school event." Harry's grip tightened on his wand without him noticing. "Is he here for you?" Harry asked. Isolde's eyes snapped to him. "No." Harry blinked. Then she added, colder, "He's here for you." The clearing seemed to drop 10 degrees. Harry's scar prickled, not pain, not the burning he associated with Voldemort's proximity. This was different, like a needle of instinct. Isolde stepped closer, the distance between them suddenly too small and yet necessary. "You're going into that maze," she said, "and someone thinks it's an opportunity." Harry's mouth went dry. "Moody said the maze is full of creatures and spells." "Moody is not omniscient," Isolde cut in. "And Hogwarts defenses are designed to keep people out, not stop someone from using your event against you." Harry's thoughts raced. Dumbledore. "Trust the institution," Isolde said, voice sharp with disdain. "Institutions are slow. People with knives are fast." Harry stared at her. "What are you saying?" Isolde's gaze held his, unwavering. "I'm saying you will not go into that maze unprepared," she said. "Not just with spells, with awareness." Harry's chest tightened. "How?" Isolde lifted her wand and drew a small, tight circle in the air. A faint ring of green-silver light formed, then collapsed into a thin thread that floated between her fingers like spider silk. "Put out your hand," she commanded. Harry hesitated, then extended his hand. Isolde wrapped the thread around his wrist once. It didn't bind like rope. It sank into his skin like warmth. Harry gasped softly. "What is that?" "A sympathetic tether," Isolde said. "It won't tell me where you are, because the maze wards will scramble location. But it will tell me if something foreign touches your magic." Harry's heart pounded. "Like Imperius? A curse? Like someone trying to hijack the rules," Isolde said. "If that happens, I'll know." Harry swallowed. "And then what?" "You'll run into the maze, and—" Isolde's eyes flashed. "And what? Die heroically?" Harry flinched. Isolde's voice went colder. "No, I'll alert the people who can act. Dumbledore." McGonagall. Even Snape if I have to. Harry stared. You go to Snape? Isolde's jaw tightened. I'd go to the giant squid if it could fix the problem. Harry let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but it came out shaky. Isolde studied him. You're scared. Harry swallowed. I'm always scared. Isolde's eyes softened only slightly. Good. Fear is not weakness. It's information. Use it. Harry nodded slowly. Then, because he couldn't stop himself, he asked, Why are you doing this? Isolde's gaze sharpened. Because I'm not letting them take you. Harry's chest tightened. He felt her emotion through the bond fierce, protective, and terrifyingly controlled. Not possessive, not soft, just absolute. Isolde's voice lowered. And because Voldemort's blind spot is arrogance. He thinks Slytherins belong to him by default. Harry swallowed. They don't. Isolde's mouth curved slightly, darkly. No, they belong to themselves. She took a step back, regaining the distance she preferred. Now, she said briskly, show me your shield again. If you can't keep a stone from breaking it, you won't keep a curse from breaking you. Harry raised his wand. And in the fading June light, by the edge of a lake that looked innocent and wasn't, they practiced until Harry's arms ached and his mind sharpened into something less like panic and more like steel. Seen two allies in a maze of teeth. The day of the third task arrived, wrapped in applause and pretending. The stands were full by evening, roaring with students and visiting schools and ministry officials who smiled too much. Lanterns glowed around the Quidditch pitch, casting the new-grown hedges in dramatic shadow. The maze stood tall and dense, walls of green so thick they looked like they could swallow sound. Harry stood with the other champions near the entrance, heart hammering. Cedric Diggory was calm in that way that made Harry want to either admire him or shake him. Fleur looked tense, eyes bright and focused. Crumb's expression was unreadable, but his shoulders were tight, like he was bracing for impact. Bagman's voice boomed across the pitch, explaining rules everyone already knew. Then the whistle blew. Fleur went first. Then Crumb. Then Cedric. Harry stood at the entrance, gripping his wand so hard his fingers hurt. The thread on his wrist the one Isolde had woven felt warm. He glanced up into the stands. He spotted her instantly. Isolde sat among the Slytherins, posture perfect, expression blank. But her eyes were locked on the maze like she was watching a duel. Harry felt a faint pulse through the bond. Steady. He inhaled once, then stepped into the maze. The world changed instantly. The roar of the crowd faded like someone had stuffed cotton in Harry's ears. The air inside was cooler, heavy with plant scent and damp earth. The hedge walls rose above him like a living corridor. Harry whispered, Lumos, and his wand lit, a small circle of light pushing back shadow. He moved forward carefully. Every footstep felt too loud. He turned a corner and the path split. He chose left, then right, then left again, trying to remember the directions he'd planned, trying not to think about how easily someone could get lost forever in a place like this. A rustling came from ahead. Harry lifted his wand. Who's there? No answer. The rustling grew louder. Then, a blast-ended script burst into view, clicking and hissing, its armored body scraping the ground, its tail sparking as it charged. Harry's heart slammed into his ribs. Stupefy. The red spell hit its shell and bounced. Harry swore under his breath. The script lunged. Harry threw himself aside, rolling, feeling heat scorch the air where its tail blasted. He came up on one knee and remembered his old voice. Stop trying to be strong. Start trying to be correct. Scripts were armored. So don't hit armor. Harry snapped his wand. Flipendo. The spell caught it under the belly, flipping it hard enough that it slammed into the hedge. The creature shrieked, legs flailing. Harry didn't waste time. He pointed his wand. Impedimenta. The script slowed, trapped in thickened air, and Harry sprinted past it before it could right itself. His lungs burned. His mind was sharp. It wasn't bravery. It wasn't luck. It was thinking. He turned another corner and nearly collided with Cedric. Cedric's eyes widened, then narrowed in relief. Harry. Harry swallowed. You all right? Cedric nodded, breathing hard. You? Fine. Harry lied automatically. Cedric's gaze flicked to Harry's wrist, where the faintest outline of Isolde's thread was barely visible beneath his sleeve. He didn't comment, just looked back up. Want to go together? Cedric asked, voice steady. We can split the hazards. Harry hesitated. In the stands, the world wanted champions to be rivals. It wanted stories with winners and losers. It wanted one hero. But Isolde had told him, survive. Cedric was good, and Cedric was decent. Harry nodded. Yeah. They moved together, side by side, wands raised. They passed a boggart. Cedric handled it, with a Patronus that looked like a shining hawk. Harry felt a twist in his stomach when his mind tried to conjure Dementors, but Cedric's calm presence helped him keep moving. They faced a patch of devil's snare. Harry remembered the second task, the cold grip of water, and his own panic. This time, he didn't panic. He lit fire with his wand and burned a path without wasting time. Then the maze changed again. A figure stumbled into view. Victor Krum. He was moving like he was underwater, eyes dull, wand raised. Cedric stiffened. Krum? Krum didn't answer. He fired a curse. It wasn't a stunner. It wasn't even something a champion should be firing in a school tournament. Cedric threw up a shield. The curse struck it and made the air hiss. Harry's stomach dropped. Imperious, Harry breathed. Cedric's face went pale. Someone's controlling him. Harry's scar prickled faintly. Isolde's thread warmed suddenly, like a warning flare. Harry's heart slammed. For magic. Someone was interfering. Cedric shouted, Expelliarmus. Krum's wand flew from his hand, but he didn't stop. He lunged forward, fists clenched, moving like a puppet. Harry didn't want to hurt him, but he didn't have time. Petri ficus totalis. Krum froze mid-step and toppled sideways like a felled tree. Cedric stared, panting. We need to tell someone. Harry's mouth was dry. We can't leave. Cedric swallowed, then nodded grimly. Then we finish and warn Dumbledore the moment we're out. Harry nodded. They stepped around Krum's rigid body and hurried on. The maze pressed in, hedge walls whispering in the wind like it was talking behind their backs. Then after what felt like hours, but was probably minutes, they saw it. A faint glow ahead. The Triwizard Cup. It sat on a small raised platform in the center of a clearing, gleaming in Harry's wand light like a prize in a trap. Cedric slowed. Harry slowed too. The thread on Harry's wrist felt hot now. Not burning, just insistent. Harry's pulse thundered. Cedric looked at Harry. We're here. Harry's throat tightened. Yeah. Cedric's mouth twisted. We said we'd take it together. Harry stared at the cup. His instinct screamed. This was too neat, too clean, too final. The warmth on his wrist pulsed like a warning. Harry swallowed. Cedric, something's wrong. Cedric's gaze sharpened. You think it's a trap? Harry nodded, breathing hard. Krum was cursed. Someone's messing with the maze. Cedric glanced around. The hedge wall stood still. No sound. No movement. Then Cedric took a step closer to the cup, slow and cautious. Harry followed. They moved like they were approaching a sleeping dragon. Cedric said quietly, if we don't take it, we lose. And if we take it, and it's a trap. Harry finished, voice rough, we deal with it. Cedric nodded. They reached the platform. The cup glowed. Harry's scar prickled again, faint but sharp enough to make him flinch. He looked at Cedric. Cedric looked back. Then together they reached and touched the cup. Scene 3, the Portkey in the dead air. The world yanked sideways. Harry felt his stomach lurch like it was being pulled through a keyhole. His feet left the ground. Wind roared in his ears. His hand was glued to the cup like it had turned into a magnet. Cedric's grip was tight too. Then, they slammed on a hard ground. Harry's knees buckled. Dirt scraped his palms. He gasped, tasting cold air that smelled of rot and old stone. He looked up. Gravestones. A graveyard. Fog clung low to the ground like smoke that had decided to crawl instead of rise. The sky above was black, starless. A tall, skeletal yew tree loomed in the distance, branches like claws. Harry's heart stopped. Cedric lifted his head, eyes wide. Where are we? Harry's mind screamed one name before he could stop it. Voldemort. The word fell out of Harry like a curse. Cedric's breathing hitched. Harry. A sound came from behind a large gravestone. A shuffle. A wheeze. Harry's wand snapped up instantly. He didn't wait. He didn't freeze in confusion like last time. He'd been warned. He'd felt the thread burn. He'd seen Crumb controlled. He moved like Isolde had trained him to move. Fast, correct, alive. A cloaked figure stepped out into view, dragging something heavy. A bundle. Harry's stomach turned. The figure's hood shadowed its face, but Harry recognized the rat-like posture instantly. Wormtail. Cedric sucked in a breath. Who? Harry barked behind me. Wormtail raised his wand. Avada. Harry shouted, Protego. His shield snapped into place, layered stronger than it had ever been. It didn't feel like a bubble anymore. It felt like a shifting weave. The green curse hit the shield. For a horrifying split second, Harry thought it would shatter. Then the shield slid the curse, skimming across it like water over glass, ripping past into the fog and exploding against a gravestone with a sickening hiss. Cedric didn't waste time. Stupefy. The red spell hit Wormtail square in the chest, knocking him backward. Wormtail hit the ground with a grunt, then rolled, snarling, and flung a curse blindly. It wasn't killing. It was something jagged and dark. Cedric shoved Harry aside, the curse slicing across Cedric's shoulder. Cedric cried out, collapsing to one knee, clutching his arm as blood soaked his sleeve. Harry's stomach dropped. No, Cedric. Cedric gritted his teeth. I'm fine. Wormtail scrambled up, panicked now, eyes wide. He glanced toward the bundle behind him. Harry's blood turned to ice as he realized what it was. A cauldron. A large stone cauldron, steaming faintly. And next to it, a small, twisted shape, barely human, cradled in the folds of the cloak like a disgusting infant. Harry's scar burned. Not prickled. Burned. Pain sliced through his skull, and he nearly vomited. Then a cold voice hissed from the darkness. Kill the spare. Wormtail flinched, eyes wide. Harry's heart slammed. He moved before Wormtail could. He pointed his wand and shouted, Expelliarmus. Wormtail's wand flew. But Wormtail didn't need a wand for what happened next. He lunged for the cauldron, dragging Cedric's wand which had fallen near him into his hand with a frantic grab. Cedric tried to rise. Harry snapped, Cedric, stay down. Cedric's jaw clenched, but he obeyed, breathing hard, shaking with pain. Harry's mind raced. They were trapped. The cup was here, but was it still a portkey? Or had the magic already spent? Wormtail began moving, chanting in a cracked voice. Harry's scar screamed. The ritual. Bone. Flesh. Blood. Harry's stomach turned. He didn't have time to stop it properly. Wormtail's body blocked the cauldron and the small thing beside it. Voldemort was watching. Harry's hands trembled. Then Isolde's voice echoed in his mind, not literally, but like a remembered instruction. Dark magic isn't strong because it's evil. It's strong because it's specific. It runs on rules. Rules. Rituals. Circles. Harry's breath hitched. Isolde had once explained, with clinical coldness, how old magic anchored itself. A ritual is a contract with the universe. If you break the contract, The universe snaps back. How did you break it? You disrupted the pattern. You changed the terms. And you did it fast. Harry glanced down at the ground. Dirt. Grave dirt. Old magic thick with death. He remembered Isolde's offhand comment weeks ago, spoken like she was discussing homework. Blood rituals are picky. They want order. If you can't stop one, introduce chaos into the geometry. Harry hadn't understood then. He did now. Harry dropped to one knee, ignoring the cold mud, and slashed his wand through the air. Incarcerous. Ropes shot toward Wormtail. Wormtail shrieked, flinging a curse that snapped the ropes apart, but it bought Harry a heartbeat. Harry pressed his palm to the ground and whispered to Findo. Not at Wormtail, at the earth. The soil split, carving a rough ring, an uneven circle around the cauldron's base, cutting into the ritual space like a jagged scar. Wormtail screamed. No. Harry didn't stop. He grabbed a handful of grave dirt and flung it across the cauldron's rim, shouting the only thing he could think of. Finite. The air cracked. For a split second, the ritual steam faltered, the chanting stumbled, the magic wavered like a flame hit by wind. The small thing beside the cauldron shrieked, high and furious. But Wormtail recovered, eyes wild. You Wormtail spat, voice shaking. You ruined the circle. Good. Harry pointed his wand at Wormtail and fired, stupefy. Wormtail dodged, clutching his stolen wand, and hissed, the Dark Lord doesn't need perfection, only blood. He lunged. Harry reacted without thinking. Reducto. The spell blasted the gravestone beside Wormtail, sending stone shards flying like knives. Wormtail screamed, stumbling back, blood on his cheek. Cedric groaned, trying to rise again. Harry! I know, Harry gasped. Footsteps sounded in the fog. Not one pair. Many. Shapes emerged, cloaked, masked Death Eaters, operating into the graveyard like shadows becoming solid. Harry's heart stopped. They were surrounded. A cold laugh hissed from near the cauldron. Wonderful, the voice said, stronger now. Even when you struggle, you entertain me. The cauldron bubbled. Wormtail's hand, missing fingers, shaking, lifted a knife. Harry's scar blazed. Pain exploded behind his eyes. He shouted no, but it was too late. Wormtail cut. Blood dripped into the cauldron, and the magic surged like a beast waking up. The steam erupted. The air screamed. And then, a tall figure rose from the cauldron. Pale. Snake-like. Eyes burning red. Voldemort stood reborn under the dead sky. Harry's body went cold. He couldn't breathe. Cedric made a strangled sound behind him. Voldemort turned his head slowly, savoring the moment like it was food. Then his gaze locked on Harry. Harry Potter, Voldemort said softly, as if greeting an old friend. Harry's wand shook. Voldemort's smile widened. And, despair, Voldemort murmured, eyes flicking to Cedric. Harry stepped forward, blocking Cedric with his body. Voldemort's eyes glittered. How charming. A Gryffindor to the end. Harry's chest heaved. He felt the thread at his wrist burn like a brand. Far away, he could feel Isolde too, like a distant flare of alarm through the bond. She knew. Voldemort lifted his wand. Bow, Voldemort whispered. Death Eaters laughed. Harry's muscles locked, body forced downward by invisible pressure. He hit his knees. Cedric gasped, dragged by the same force, falling beside him with a hiss of pain. Voldemort walked closer, slow, delighted. I dreamed of this, Voldemort said. Not just your death, Harry Potter, your humiliation. Harry's teeth clenched. His scar screamed. Then Voldemort moved his wand. Crucio. Pain detonated through Harry's body like lightning. He screamed, vision going white, hands clawing at dirt. Somewhere, faintly, he heard Cedric shout his name. Then, A different sensation cut through the agony. Not relief. Not safety. A pulse of icy focus sharp, clean sliding down the bond like a blade. Isolde. Even from miles away, her presence hit Harry like a command. Hold on. Harry's shaking fingers tightened on his wand. The pain didn't stop, but Harry found a thin thread inside it, something to grip. When Voldemort finally lifted the curse, Harry collapsed forward, gasping, face in dirt. Voldemort's voice purred. Get up. Harry's body trembled as he forced himself upright. Voldemort smiled wider. Now, duel. The Death Eaters murmured eagerly. Cedric tried to rise again, but his injured arm trembled. Harry glanced at him, breath ragged. Cedric's eyes met his. Cedric mouthed, go. Harry swallowed hard. He stepped forward, wand raised, legs shaking. Voldemort lifted his wand lightly, like it weighed nothing. Begin, Voldemort whispered. Harry didn't wait. Expelliarmus. Voldemort's voice was almost amused. Avada Kedavra. Red and green spells collided. The impact sent a shock wave through the air, throwing dirt into the fog. Then, a golden web snapped between their wands. Harry's breath caught. Priori Incantatem. Ghostly shapes burst from Voldemort's wand, faint echoes of those he'd killed. A man. A woman. Harry's parents. Harry's throat tightened in grief, so sharp it almost broke him. James's ghost shouted, hold on, Harry. Lily's ghost said, voice urgent, when the connection breaks, grab the port key, take the spare. Harry's heart slammed. Cedric. The cup. Harry's mind raced. But Voldemort was pushing, forcing the connection, trying to crush Harry through will alone. Harry's arm shook. His wand vibrated like it might shatter. And then Harry felt it again, through the bond Isolde's emotion, a fierce, cold certainty. There's always a way out. Find a rule. Rule. Port keys. Ritual circles. Contracts. Harry's eyes snapped to the cup lying a few feet away, half buried in dirt from the chaos. If it was still a port key, he needed to make it one again or override it. Isolde had once explained port key theory with bored precision. A port key's destination is an anchor. It doesn't disappear after use. It just exhausts the impulse. If you can re-trigger the impulse by reintroducing the original intent, you can pull it again. Harry hadn't believed her then. Now he didn't have the luxury of disbelief. The connection wavered. James's ghost shouted now. Harry forced his wand downward, breaking the connection with a violent snap that sent sparks flying. He lunged not toward Voldemort, but sideways toward the cup. Voldemort screamed, enraged. Stop him! Death Eaters surged forward. Cedric, panting, dragged himself up and fired a curse with his good hand, stupefy, knocking one mass figure back. Harry grabbed the cup. Nothing happened. His heart stopped. Then Harry did the only thing he could think of, something reckless, something technical, something that felt like Isolde would call it correct. He pressed his bleeding palm to the cup's handle, smearing blood across the metal. Portus, Harry whispered fiercely. The cup flared blue-white. It yanked. Harry shouted, Cedric, hold on. Cedric threw himself forward, grabbing the cup with his good hand. The world tore sideways again. Scene 4 Backlash and the Bond Outlocks. They slammed onto grass. Harry's lungs sucked in air that smelled like summer, like Hogwarts, like life. The Quidditch pitch. The roar of the crowd hit like a wave screams, chaos, confusion. Harry rolled, coughing, clutching the cup. Cedric hit the ground beside him, gasping, injured arm limp, robes soaked with blood. People surged forward. Dumbledore's voice boomed, sharp as thunder. Back! Harry's vision swam. His scar burned like fire. His body trembled, not just from pain, but from something deeper: shock, adrenaline, horror. He tried to speak. No sound came out. The world tilted. Harry's magic wild. Panic surged outward like an explosion. The air around him cracked. Grass flattened in a ring. Lanterns flickered violently. Students screamed. Harry didn't mean to do it. He couldn't stop it. It was like the terror inside him had turned into a storm. Hands grabbed him, someone trying to restrain him. Harry jerked, instinctive, half-feral, wand coming up. No, someone shouted. Harry's mind screamed Death Eaters, even though he was safe, but his body didn't believe it. He flailed. Magic snapped. Someone's shield went up. Someone grabbed his wrist. And then the bond inside him snapped tight. Isolde. The thread became a rope. A presence slammed into him like someone grabbing him by the collar and yanking him back from a cliff. Harry's head whipped around. Isolde was running onto the pitch. She shouldn't have been able to. Professors and aurors were pushing students back. But Isolde moved like she'd found the one crack in the crowd and turned it into a path. McGonagall's voice rang out, "Miss Rosier, stop." Isolde didn't stop. She reached Harry and dropped to her knees beside him, ignoring the chaos, ignoring the way the world stared. Her hands were steady as she grabbed Harry's face, not gently, but firmly, forcing his eyes to meet hers. "Potter," she snapped. Harry's breathing hitched. He couldn't speak. His scar screamed. His magic surged again. Isolde's voice cut through like steel. "Look at me." Harry's shaking eyes locked on hers. Isolde's gaze was cold, focused, ruthless. "Breathe," she ordered. "Now. In. Out." Harry's chest convulsed. He tried. Isolde's hands tightened, anchoring him physically like she could pin his soul to the earth. Again, she commanded. Harry inhaled ragged. Exhaled. His magic flickered, storm weakening slightly. Isolde leaned closer, her forehead almost touching his. Through the bond, Harry felt her emotion-tight fear, fierce control, and something that made his throat tighten. "You came back." Harry's eyes stung. He swallowed, trying to force words out. He rasped. Isolde cut him off. "Later. Breathe." Harry did. Again. And again. The wild magic slowly calmed, the air around them settling like a storm dying. Dumbledore's face appeared above them, eyes blazing with controlled fury. He looked at Isolde, then at Harry, and made a decision in a single heartbeat. "Take them to the castle," Dumbledore said sharply. "Now." Madame Pomfrey pushed through, seeing Cedric's blood and making a sound like she was about to start hexing teenagers out of pure stress. "Mr. Diggory," she snapped, already conjuring bandages. "What in Merlin's?" Cedric coughed, face pale. "He's back," Cedric said hoarsely. "Voldemort's back." The crowd erupted in panic, shouting. Ministry officials shouted denial. Students screamed. Teachers moved like an army forming. Harry's stomach twisted as the memory hit him like a punch. The graveyard, Voldemort's red eyes, the laughter, the pain. Harry's breath hitched again. Isolde's grip tightened instantly. "No," she said, voice low. "Not now." Harry's eyes squeezed shut. He shook. Isolde pressed her forehead to his briefly one sharp moment of contact, and Harry felt the bond flare. Not romantic. Not soft. More like a lock clicking into place. A vow made without words. "I will hold you here." Harry's shaking slowed. He opened his eyes. Isolde's gaze held his, unblinking. "You're safe," she said sharply, like she was daring reality to argue. Harry swallowed, voice raw. He wanted Cedric dead. Isolde's eyes flicked to Cedric, then back. "But he isn't." Harry's chest tightened. He looked at Cedric alive, injured, breathing. Harry's throat burned with relief and guilt and anger all at once. Isolde's voice dropped. "Tell me everything when you can speak without breaking." Harry nodded weakly. Then, As Dumbledore's people began moving them, the thread between Harry and Isolde stayed tight, no longer a strange hum, but a constant channel. Harry could feel her fear. She could feel his trauma. And neither of them could pretend anymore that this bond was just an odd magical accident. It was real. It was active. And tonight, it had saved him from drowning on land. Scene 5, a quiet corner of war. Later, much later, Harry sat in a small room off the hospital wing, wrapped in a blanket that didn't feel warm enough. Cedric had been taken to a bed and was asleep under potion-induced calm. Madame Pomfrey had threatened to ban the Triwizard Tournament forever and personally hex anyone who disagreed. The castle outside the room was chaos. Teachers moved in tight formations. Whispers ran like fire through corridors. Ministry people argued with Dumbledore somewhere, voices sharp with panic and denial. Harry's scar throbbed faintly now, like a bruise. Isolde sat across from him, back straight, hands folded in her lap. She looked composed, but Harry could feel the tremor underneath through the bond. Fear. Not for herself. For what this meant. Harry stared at his hands. His palms still had dried blood from the cup. He whispered, "I brought him back." Isolde's eyes flashed. "No." Harry swallowed, voice cracking. "If I hadn't touched the cup, if I hadn't." Isolde leaned forward, voice low and vicious with certainty. "Stop. That kind of thinking is how people control you. They put guilt in your mouth and call it responsibility." Harry blinked, startled by the force of it. Isolde's gaze held his. Voldemort made choices. Wormtail made choices. Death Eaters made choices. You survived. Harry's throat tightened. Cedric almost. But he didn't, Isolde said, voice like iron. Because you were prepared. Harry's breath hitched. Prepared. He thought of the shield sliding, of the thread on his wrist warming, of Isolde's cold instructions turning into actions under pressure. He whispered, "You warned me." Isolde didn't look away. "Yes." Harry's eyes stung. How did I know what to do with the poor key?" Isolde's mouth tightened. "Because you listened." Harry laughed weakly, and it sounded like a broken thing. Then his face crumpled for half a second. Isolde moved instantly, crossing the room in 2 steps, kneeling beside him. Her hand gripped his wrist right over the tether she'd made. Through the bond, her emotions surged, fierce, steady. Harry's shaking slowed. He stared at her, voice barely there. This bond, it's stronger now." Isolde's jaw tightened, but she didn't deny it. "Yes," she said quietly. Harry swallowed. Are you okay with that?" Isolde's eyes flickered. For the first time, she looked almost honest. "No," she said. Harry's stomach dropped. Then she added, voice low, "But it doesn't matter what I'm comfortable with. It matters what keeps you alive." Harry stared at her. And in that moment, he understood. Isolde Rosier wasn't a fairy tale soulmate. She wasn't soft destiny. She was a shield with teeth. A strategist in a world that rewarded chaos. And Voldemort had just returned, which meant the story wasn't about a school tournament anymore. It was about war. Isolde's voice cut through the silence. "Harry," she said, and the way she said his name without mockery, without distance, hit him harder than any curse. He met her eyes. "We don't have time to fall apart," she said quietly. "Not if we want to win." Harry swallowed, nodding once. Outside the room, the castle shook with panic. Inside, the bond between Lion and Snake held steady, 2 heartbeats locked together in the quiet center of the storm. Scene 1, the locked door and the boy who stopped asking nicely. Harry woke up on Privet Drive like he always did after something terrible, not fully believing he'd survived it. The sun through the curtains looked wrong, too normal, too bright, too ordinary for someone who had watched Voldemort rise from a cauldron and smile. For the first 2 days, the Dursleys were oddly polite. Not kind, never kind, but cautious. Like Harry was an unexploded spell. Aunt Petunia avoided his eyes. Uncle Vernon grunted and kept the television louder than usual. Dudley shuffled around like he expected Harry to hex his knees for sport. Harry didn't care. He sat on his bed, staring at the mark on his wrist where Isolde's tether had been faded now, but not gone. The skin still felt warm sometimes, as if the magic had sunk deeper than anything physical. He could still feel her. Not constantly thank Merlin, because that would have been maddening, but in pulses, in impressions, like an emotional weather report that drifted in and out of his awareness. Cold focus. Tension. A spike of irritation that made Harry glance up from his homework and mutter, "What now?" to an empty room. Then, one afternoon, a sharp flare hit him so hard he sat up. Not pain. Fear. Not Voldemort's fear. Not Harry's fear. Isolde's. Harry's heart slammed. He grabbed his wand from under his pillow like a reflex. His scar prickled faintly, but it wasn't the scar's warning. It was the bond's. Something was happening, and he was trapped in a suburban bedroom with floral wallpaper. He paced, fists clenched. "Where are you?" he thought, uselessly. And then it eased fear, fading into cold control. Harry exhaled shakily, then slammed his fist lightly into the wall. He wasn't going to do this again. He wasn't going to be left in the dark while adults decided what he was allowed to know. That night, the letter arrived. Not by owl, by something that felt like the air tore. A folded piece of parchment appeared on his bedside table, as if it had been there all along. Harry snatched it up, heart pounding. "Pack. Be ready. Do not tell them. D." Harry didn't need the signature. Dumbledore. Harry's jaw tightened. The order was moving him. Good. But if they thought he was going quietly into another house where people lied to his face for his own good, they were wrong. 10 minutes later, the living room fireplace flared green. A tall figure stepped out, cloak swirling, face half-shadowed. Mad-Eye Moody. His magical eye whirred and locked onto Harry immediately. "Pack light," Moody growled. "We're leaving." Harry stood with his trunk already half ready. Moody's eye flicked toward the stairs. "They see anything?" "No," Harry said. Moody grunted approval. "Good. Let's go." Harry followed him to the fireplace. Just before stepping in, Harry glanced back at the Dursleys' silent, uneasy faces. He felt nothing. Not hatred, not fear, only relief. Then he stepped into the flames, and the world spun. Scene 2. Grimmauld Place and the war he wasn't invited to. Number 12 Grimmauld Place still felt like a house that resented having people in it. The air smelled like old dust and old anger. The wallpaper peeled like it was trying to escape the walls. Curtains hung heavy and grim, as if sunlight was something that needed permission to exist. As soon as Harry stumbled out of the fireplace, coughing soot, voices hit him from the hallway. "Absolutely not. That's enough, Molly. I will not have him dragged into." Harry's stomach tightened. He knew that voice. Mrs. Weasley. He stepped into the hall, and the argument froze like someone had cast Petri ficus totalis on the entire room. Mrs. Weasley stood near the drawing room entrance, cheeks flushed, hands clenched. Her hair was slightly frizzed like she'd been arguing for hours. Behind her, Arthur looked torn between comfort and caution. Sirius Black leaned against the wall with the restless energy of a caged animal, eyes bright, jaw set. Remus Lupin stood beside him, calm but tired, as if he'd been trying to keep the peace and failing politely. And at the far end of the room, Dumbledore himself sat like a calm storm, hands folded, expression mild, eyes twinkling in that irritating way that suggested he already knew how this would end. Mrs. Weasley rushed forward immediately, grabbing Harry's shoulders. "Oh, Harry," she said, voice thick. "You're here. Thank goodness." Harry didn't relax. He looked past her at Dumbledore. "What's going on?" Harry asked. Mrs. Weasley's mouth tightened. "Nothing you need to worry about. You just need to rest." Harry's voice sharpened. "Voldemort is back." Silence. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was heavy. Mrs. Weasley's hands tightened on his shoulders like she wanted to hold him still in a world that wouldn't stop moving. "We know," she said softly. Harry's eyes didn't leave Dumbledore. "Then stop treating me like I'm 5. Dumbledore's gaze met his calm, patient. "Harry," Dumbledore said gently, "we only wish to protect you." Harry felt something flare in his chest, hot and bitter. "Protect me," he echoed. "Like last year? Like when you let me get dragged into a tournament and told me nothing? Like when you didn't warn me about the cup being a portkey?" Moody snorted from the corner. "You got a point." Mrs. Weasley whirled on Moody. "Alastair." Sirius pushed off the wall, eyes bright with a dangerous kind of satisfaction. "Let him talk," Sirius said. "For once." Mrs. Weasley turned on Sirius, voice sharp. "You think it's good for him to be involved in this? After what he's been through?" Sirius's eyes flashed. "I think it's good for him to stop being treated like furniture." Harry's throat tightened. Remus sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Can we not do this in the hall?" Harry stepped forward. "Where's Ron?" he asked. Mrs. Weasley's expression shifted guilt, frustration. "In the kitchen," she said. "He's upset." Harry's chest tightened again. But he pushed through it. He wasn't here to patch friendships tonight. He was here for something else. He said, voice steady, "I need to contact someone." Mrs. Weasley stiffened instantly. Dumbledore's eyes sharpened slightly. "Who?" Harry held his ground. Isolde Rosier. The temperature in the hallway dropped. Mrs. Weasley's face went pale. Sirius's eyebrows shot up. Then his mouth curved into a grin that was half amused and half furious on Harry's behalf. Remus looked startled but thoughtful. Moody's magical I word faster. Arthur Weasley looked like he'd just been hit by a Confundus charm. Dumbledore didn't flinch, but the twinkle in his eyes dimmed. Mrs. Weasley's voice came out sharp. "Absolutely not." Harry's jaw clenched. "I wasn't asking permission." Mrs. Weasley's eyes widened. "Harry." "She's a Rosier," Mrs. Weasley hissed, as if the name itself might summon dark magic. "Do you know what that means?" "Yes," Harry said, voice cold. "It means you're going to judge her before you even meet her, just like Ron did." Mrs. Weasley's mouth tightened. "Ron is trying to protect you." Harry snapped. "Ron doesn't get to decide who I'm allowed to trust." Sirius let out a low laugh, delighted. "Merlin, he sounds like James." Harry didn't look at Sirius. He looked at Dumbledore. "She warned me about the graveyard," Harry said. "She sensed Death Eaters nearby before I went in. She helped me prepare. Cedric is alive because I was prepared." Mrs. Weasley flinched at Cedric's name. Harry continued, voice trembling slightly with anger. "So no, you don't get to ban her like she's some bad influence. She saved my life." Mrs. Weasley's lips pressed into a thin line. "She's a child," Mrs. Weasley said, "and she's from a family." "Which means what?" Harry cut in. "That she's automatically evil? That she doesn't get a choice?" Mrs. Weasley's eyes flashed. "It means Voldemort would use her to reach you." Harry's scar prickled faintly. And in the same moment, the bond pulsed cold irritation, sharp as a slap. Isolde, somewhere far away, clearly having a very strong opinion about this conversation. Harry swallowed. He lowered his voice. "She isn't my weakness," Harry said. "She's my anchor." Sirius's grin vanished. He stared at Harry like he just said something that hit too close to home. Remus's expression softened with something like sadness. Mrs. Weasley looked shaken, but still stubborn. Dumbledore finally spoke. "Harry," he said calmly, "Miss Rosier may be complicated." Harry's laugh was humorless. "So am I." Silence. Then Sirius stepped forward. "Let him contact her," Sirius said, voice sharp. "If you keep stripping choices away from him, you'll end up with a kid who either breaks or runs." Mrs. Weasley's face tightened. "Sirius, you're being irresponsible." Sirius's eyes flashed. "I'm being honest." Moody's gravelly voice came from the corner. "We should know everything the kid knows. If the Slytherin girl sensed a mark burning, That's intel. Mrs. Weasley looked like she might explode. Arthur finally raised a hand. Molly. She turned on him. Don't you start, Arthur. Arthur flinched. Harry's stomach twisted. He hated this. He hated that his life made kind people afraid and afraid people controlling. He took a step toward Dumbledore. I'm not doing this without her, Harry said. Not anymore. Dumbledore studied him for a long moment. Then he sighed quietly, like someone realizing a plan had just changed shape. Very well, Dumbledore said. You may write to her. Mrs. Weasley gasped. Professor. Dumbledore lifted a hand. On one condition. Harry's voice was tight. What condition? Dumbledore's gaze was steady. The letter will be reviewed by an order member first. For safety. Harry's anger surged. Then Isolde's cold voice seemed to echo in his mind again. Survival is compromise without surrender. Harry swallowed hard. Fine, Harry said. Moody can read it. Moody grunted approval. Smart choice. Mrs. Weasley looked like she wanted to argue more, but Arthur touched her arm gently. Let us breed, Arthur murmuret. Mrs. Weasley pulled away, but she didn't storm off. Not yet. Harry felt the bond pulse again, cool approval. Isolde, wherever she was, would have said, accept the concession, when a war later. Harry turned toward the drawing room table, grabbed parchment, and started writing with shaking hands. Scene 3, a letter like a blade. Harry didn't know how to write a letter like this. Not a friendly one. Not a how are you one. This was war. So he wrote honestly. He wrote about the graveyard, about Voldemort's return, about Wormtail, about Death Eaters, about the pain. He wrote about Cedric surviving, but being injured. He wrote about the cup and the portkey and the ritual circle he disrupted. And then he wrote the part that mattered most. I can still feel you that I don't know what this bond is becoming, but it's real that I won't let them cut you out of my life if you're in danger. Tell me. If you know anything, tell me. He stared at the words for a long moment. Then he added something quieter, almost embarrassed. Thank you for making me functional. He rolled the parchment up tightly. Moody snatched it, his magical eye scanning it like it was a bomb. Moody grunted. No obvious stupidity. That's rare. Harry glared. Thanks. Moody flicked his wand, and the letter folded itself, sealing shut. We'll send it through order channels, Moody said. I'll post compromise these days. Harry's throat tightened. How long? Moody cut him off. No promises. But she'll get it. Harry nodded, jaw clenched. As Moody strode off, Harry felt that helplessness again, waiting, always waiting. Then the bond pulsed. A fin impression. Not words. Just presence. Like somewhere far away, Isolde had gone still, as if she'd felt his letter before it arrived. Harry's chest eased just a fraction. Scene 4. Sirius Black understands a joke. Later that night, after the shouting had reduced to tense silence, and Mrs. Weasley had retreated to the kitchen muttering about children and madness, Harry wandered into the drawing room. The curtains were drawn. The fire crackled low. The old family tapestry still hung on the wall like a threat. Sirius sat in an armchair, staring into the flames like he was watching memories burn. Harry lingered awkwardly near the doorway. Sirius glanced up. You're not asleep. Harry shrugged. Can't. Sirius snorted softly. Welcome to the club. Harry hesitated, then asked, You really think it's okay? Me having her in my life? Sirius's expression shifted. He looked suddenly older. You want the honest answer? Sirius asked. Harry nodded. Sirius leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. I think it's hilarious. Harry blinked. What? Sirius's mouth curved into a sharp grin. The Potters, the famous Gryffindor family, bonded to a Slytherin from an old pureblood line. If my mom could see it, she clawed her own eyes. Harry let out a startled laugh. Then Sirius's grin faded. And I think it's dangerous, Sirius added quietly. Harry's chest tightened again. Sirius met his eyes. Not because she's a Slytherin, because the world doesn't like exceptions. It punishes them. Harry swallowed. Sirius's voice softened. I know what it's like to be labeled by your house. I know what it's like to have people decide who you are before you speak. Harry nodded slowly. Sirius leaned forward, elbows on knees. Tell me something, Harry. When you're with her, do you feel smaller? Harry frowned. No. Sirius nodded once. Then keep her close. Harry's throat tightened. Mrs. Weasley thinks Voldemort will use her against me. Sirius's eyes flashed. Voldemort will use anything against you. That doesn't mean you go through life amputating every connection. Harry stared at Sirius, heart aching. Sirius's voice lowered. And listen, if she's tied to you by magic, Voldemort will eventually notice. He might dismiss it at first, but he'll notice. Harry swallowed. Then what do I do? Sirius smiled wolfish, fierce. You make sure she isn't a weakness. Harry's chest tightened. Sirius stood, crossing the room, and clapped Harry lightly on the shoulder. You're not James, Sirius said. You've got Lily's spine. And now, apparently, you've got a Slytherin's brain on your side. Harry couldn't help the small smile. Then Sirius added, quieter, just don't let anyone Dumbledore included turn your bond into a leash. Harry's smile faded. He nodded once. Sirius squeezed his shoulder, then let go, returning to the chair. Harry walked away with the strange sensation that someone, for once, had looked at his mess of a life and said, yes, this is complicated, but you're allowed to choose anyway. Scene 5, The Wedge and the Golden Trio. The next morning, Harry found Ron in the kitchen. Ron looked like he hadn't slept. His hair stuck up even worse than usual. His face was stubbornly blank, but his eyes were red at the edges like he'd been rubbing them. Hermione sat at the table, quietly reading a book like she was trying to build a wall of paper between herself and conflict. Mrs. Weasley clattered pots aggressively, pretending she wasn't listening. Harry stopped in the doorway. Ron looked up. Their eyes met. The room held its breath. Harry said quietly, Cedric's alive. Ron's face flickered relief, quickly smothered. Yeah, I heard. Harry stepped forward. He got hurt because Voldemort wanted him dead. Ron's jaw tightened. I know. Harry swallowed. I wrote to Isolde. Ron's face hardened instantly. Of course you did. Harry felt that flare again, anger, sharp and hot. She helped me survive. Ron shoved his chair back. She's using you. Hermione's voice cut in, calm but firm. Ron, stop saying that like it's fact. Ron whirled on her. Don't you start too. Hermione's eyes flashed. I'm not defending her because she's a Slytherin. I'm defending logic because you're being irrational. Ron's ears went red. I'm being careful. Harry's voice rose, controlled but shaking. Careful would have been listening to me. Careful would be asking what she's actually done instead of screaming snake like it's a spell. Ron's face twisted, hurt breaking through anger. You're acting like she matters more than us. Harry flinched. Because it wasn't that simple. Harry didn't want to lose Ron. But he also refused to cut Isolde out like she was poison. He said quietly, this isn't a competition. Ron's laugh was bitter. Feels like one. Harry's chest tightened. Hermione closed her book slowly, eyes thoughtful. Ron. Harry almost died. He's allowed to hold on to anything that helped him not die. Ron looked away, jaw clenched. Harry stood there, feeling the wedge deepen. Not because he wanted it, because war had a way of forcing decisions. Harry exhaled slowly. I'm not asking you to like her, he said. I'm asking you to stop treating her like she's automatically the enemy. Ron's shoulders hunched. I can't. Harry stared. Why? Ron's voice cracked, sudden and raw. Because every time you get close to someone, they get hurt. And now you're tying yourself to a rosier like it's sum-sum. He couldn't finish. Harry's anger faltered. He understood suddenly. Ron wasn't just prejudiced. Ron was terrified. Terrified that Isolde would hurt Harry. Terrified that Voldemort would hurt Isolde. terrified that Harry would get dragged into another tragedy and Ron wouldn't be able to stop it. Harry swallowed hard. He lowered his voice. Ron, I'm already tied to tragedy. I didn't choose that, but I can choose who stands beside me. Ron's eyes flickered up. For a moment, Harry thought Ron might soften. Then Ron's face hardened again like he was scared of being pulled into understanding. He muttered, "Do what you want," and walked out. Harry stood in the kitchen, feeling hollow. Hermione looked at him quietly. That went badly. Harry laughed once, bitter. That's my life. Mrs. Weasley slammed a pot down. Harry, please. You're all children. This war. Harry cut her off, voice tired. This war already started. It started in the graveyard. Silence fell. Mrs. Weasley looked like she might cry. Hermione's voice softened. Harry, at least let us be careful. Harry nodded, exhausted. I'm being careful. He didn't say the second part out loud. I'm being careful in a way you don't understand yet. Because careful didn't always look like warmth. Sometimes it looked like Isolde Rosier's cold intelligence and unwillingness to let him drown. Scene 6, Voldemort's blind spot. Far away, in a place where the air tasted like ashes and old stone, Voldemort listened to whispers. Death Eaters knelt in a semicircle, masks off, faces shining with fear and devotion. Wormtail hovered at the edge like a trembling shadow, clutching his bandaged arm. My lord, a Death Eater murmured, voice eager, there are rumors Potter has taken a Slytherin girl under his wing. A Rosier. Voldemort's red eyes narrowed, slightly not with concern, but with mild amusement. A Rosier, Voldemort repeated softly. How predictable. The Death Eater leaned forward. Should we? Voldemort lifted a long, pale finger, silencing him. Do you know, Voldemort said, voice like silk over a knife, what Potter's greatest weakness has always been? The circle stayed perfectly still. Voldemort smiled faintly. Attachment. A few Death Eaters nodded, greedy. Voldemort's gaze drifted, distant. He clings. He loves. He sacrifices. It is almost admirable. Almost. He let the word hang. Poisonous. A Slytherin girl, Voldemort murmured. A Rosier. A pet given to him by fate. He laughed softly. Let him have his comfort, Voldemort said. It will make the knife sharper later. The Death Eaters murmured approval. Wormtail shifted nervously. Voldemort's eyes flicked to him. Do not tremble, Wormtail. Wormtail bowed quickly. And no, my lord. Voldemort leaned back, satisfied. He didn't see it. That was his blind spot. He assumed Slytherin meant obedience. He assumed Rosier meant corruption. He assumed bond meant weakness. He didn't understand what Harry Potter had found by the Black Lake. A shield, not a hostage. A strategist, not a toy. A snake that did not belong to him. And somewhere in Hogwarts, a girl named Isolde Rosier folded a letter with shaking hands, then forced her fingers steady. Because she could feel him. And because she knew now, with cold clarity, that Voldemort would come for her sooner than anyone else realized. Scene 7, the reply, that changed the shape of summer. 3 days later, another letter arrived at Grimmauld Place. This one didn't come by owl either. It appeared on Harry's bedside table in the same quiet way Dumbledore's note had, like the house itself, had decided to be helpful. Harry snatched it up, heart pounding. The seal was green wax, stamped with an old crest. Rosier. Harry's hand shook as he broke it. Isolde's handwriting was sharp, controlled, like every letter had been carved instead of written. Potter. You are alive. Good. Keep it that way. Your letter was stupidly honest. I respect that. Do not do it again unless necessary. Voldemort is back. The Grey families are already deciding which way to lean. Your existence forces choices. My uncle is missing from his usual places. That means he has been called. That means you will be targeted again. Dumbledore will try to keep you ignorant. Do not allow it. Information is armor. I am not in danger yet. But I will be. When that happens, Do not react like a Gryffindor. React like someone who wants to win. Then, after a small gap, the last line looked different, like her hand had paused. I felt you scream. Do not do that again. Harry stared at that line until his eyes stung. Through the bond, he felt it faint, restrained fear. Not past fear. Present fear. Isolde was afraid of losing him. Harry swallowed hard. He folded the letter carefully and tucked it into his pocket like it was a charm. Then he walked downstairs and found Dumbledore. He didn't wait for permission. He held the letter up. You're going to tell me everything, Harry said, voice steady. Or I'll find out anyway. Dumbledore's eyes studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, the old wizard smiled, tired, not amused. Very well, Dumbledore said softly. Let's begin, Harry. And somewhere deep inside Grimmauld Place, the war changed shape, not because Harry Potter became fearless, but because he stopped being controllable. Scene 1: the train ride that became a battlefield. The Hogwarts Express always felt like a moving promise. For everyone else, it meant pumpkin pasties, laughing compartments, and the comforting idea that whatever had happened over the summer could be left behind at King's Cross. For Harry, it meant a corridor full of eyes. It meant whispers that followed him like smoke. Voldemort's back, that he's lying. Cedric nearly died. Potter brought him back. Rosie's got her claws in him. Harry stood on the platform with his trunk, Hedwig's cage in one hand, and the bond humming under his skin like an invisible pulse. He wasn't alone. Hermione stood beside him, posture straight, expression determined. She'd written letters all summer, researched everything she could find about magical bonds, and argued with Mrs. Weasley until the woman had nearly cried. Ron stood slightly apart. He was there. He wasn't gone. But his distance was its own kind of statement, like he was still deciding whether Harry's choices were betrayal or survival. And then, the hum tightened. Harry turned. Isolde Rosier walked toward them from the crowd, her trunk floating behind her like it obeyed her out of fear. She wore her uniform perfectly, tie crisp, robes clean, hair pinned back with the same efficient precision she approached everything with. She didn't look at the gawking students. She didn't look at the whispers. She looked directly at Harry. And Harry felt her emotion through the bond-cool focus, controlled tension. Not fear. Not now. Just readiness. Like she'd stepped onto the platform the way someone steps onto a chessboard. Hermione's eyes sharpened. Ron's jaw tightened. Isolde stopped in front of Harry. You look like you haven't slept, she said. Harry blinked. Hi to you too. Isolde's mouth twitched barely. Hello, Potter. The word Potter wasn't mockery anymore. It was her way of staying armored in public. Harry nodded toward her trunk. You travel light. Isolde's eyes flicked to his own trunk. You travel like you expect to evacuate. Harry's mouth tightened. Hermione stepped forward, careful. Isolde. Isolde's gaze shifted to Hermione, measuring. Granger. Ron muttered, unbelievable. Isolde's eyes cut to him instantly. Weasley. Ron's ears reddened. Don't say my name like that. Isolde's tone was bland. Like what? Correctly? Hermione inhaled, the way she did when she was about to prevent a disaster. Can we please not do this on the platform? Isolde lifted her chin slightly. I agree. Public conflict is inefficient. Ron stared at her like she'd insulted his whole family with one sentence. Harry felt the bond pulse sharp irritation from Isolde, and beneath it, something else. He's going to get you killed if he keeps making this about feelings. Harry exhaled. Let's just get on the train. They moved together, Harry and Hermione walking side by side, Ron trailing half a step behind, Isolde slipping into a position that made it look like coincidence rather than alliance. It wasn't coincidence. Harry could feel how carefully she placed herself, always with a clear view of the crowd, always near an exit, always scanning. By the time they reached a compartment, most of the train already knew. They could feel it in the way heads turned. in the way whispers sharpen like knives. Hermione slid into the seat and pulled out a book like it could form a shield. Ron threw himself into the opposite seat, arms crossed. Isolde sat next to Harry without asking. The bond hummed. Harry swallowed. So, how was your summer? Isolde's eyes flicked to him like he'd asked something ridiculous. Productive. Ron snorted. Of course. Hermione shot Ron a warning look. Isolde didn't rise to it. She looked at Harry instead, voice lower. The ministry is moving. Harry's stomach tightened. I know. Isolde's gaze sharpened. No, you don't. They're not just denying Voldemort. They're building a narrative. Hermione's head snapped up. What narrative? Isolde's voice stayed calm, clinical. That Harry Potter is unstable. That Dumbledore is using him. That anyone who believes you is either gullible or dangerous. Ron's face tightened. Even he didn't argue with that. Harry's hands clenched. So what do we do? Isolde's eyes held his. We stop fighting like Gryffindors. Ron's head jerked up. Oh, here we go. Isolde cut him off without looking. If you want to shout, do it somewhere useful. Like at the ministry. Ron shut his mouth, fuming. Isolde leaned slightly closer to Harry, voice almost quiet enough to be private. They want a hero story they can control, she said. If they can't control the hero, they'll make him the villain. Harry's scar prickled faintly. He hated how right she sounded. Hermione whispered, who's leading it? Isolde's mouth tightened. Cornelius Fudge is the face, not the brain. Harry felt the bond pulse cool contempt. Isolde added, the brain is the person who will be sent to Hogwarts. Harry's stomach dropped. Sent? Isolde's gaze flicked toward the corridor outside the compartment. To observe, to control, to turn the school into a ministry tool. Hermione's eyes narrowed. How do you know that? Isolde's expression didn't change. Because I read between the lines. And because my family still receives invitations from people who think the Rosiers are for sale. Harry's throat tightened. Are you safe? Isolde's eyes flickered for half a second, something softer, and then shut again. I'm alive, she said. Focus on the school. You'll need it. Harry stared at her. The train rattled forward into the countryside, pulling them away from London and into the unknown. And in the compartment, the golden trio didn't feel golden anymore. It felt fractured. But maybe fractures were where you could fit new pieces. Scene 2, Pink Lace and Iron Law. The Great Hall was full when they arrived. Candles floated overhead like 1,000 suspended flames. The ceiling showed a cloudy sky, restless and gray. The air smelled like feast food and nervous anticipation. Harry barely tasted anything. He watched the staff table. McGonagall looked tight-lipped. Snape looked like he wanted to poison the concept of teenagers. Flitwick smiled kindly, but his eyes were wary. Hagrid wasn't there yet. And then, a new figure sat beside Dumbledore. Small, round, smiling too widely. Pink cardigan, pink bow, pink like a bruise pretending to be a flower. Dolores Umbridge. Harry's stomach turned. He felt the bond flare instant, cold disgust. Isolde's reaction hit him, so clearly Harry almost startled. Predator. Not because Umbridge looked dangerous. Because Isolde recognized the kind of power that didn't need a wand raised to ruin you. Dumbledore rose to speak, welcoming everyone back, voice warm. Then he gestured politely. Professor Umbridge, he said, will be joining us this year as defense against the dark arts teacher. A wave of murmurs swept the hall. Umbridge stood. She smiled. And Harry knew, with sick certainty, that the smile was a weapon. Her voice was high and sweet and wrong. She spoke about progress and ministry oversight and learning in a structured manner, and every sentence felt like a collar being fitted around the school. Then she said it. Students will be instructed in a safe, practical, theory-based curriculum. Theory-based. Harry felt the hall shift. Students looked confused. Older students looked alarmed. Harry felt Hermione's hand tighten on her fork. Ron muttered, "What's she mean, theory-based?" Isolde's voice, low and sharp, answered without looking at Ron. "It means no practice. It means no defense." Harry's heart hammered. Umbridge finished, beaming as if she'd just announced a picnic instead of stripping them of protection. Dumbledore's smile stayed polite, but his eyes were hard. As the feast resumed, Isolde leaned slightly closer to Harry. "Pink is camouflage," she murmured. Harry blinked. "What?" Isolde's eyes stayed on Umbridge. "Predators often hide behind harmless shapes. Don't underestimate her, because she looks ridiculous." Ron muttered bitterly, "She looks like a toad in lace." Isolde glanced at him for half a second. "Yes, and a toad can still poison you." Hermione whispered, "What we do?" Harry's mouth was dry. "We learn anyway." Isolde's gaze flicked to him, approving. "Good," she said quietly. "Now learn how she operates." Harry frowned. "How?" Isolde's voice dropped, precise. "Power has rules. She will use rules. We will use them too." Hermione's eyes sharpened. "You mean loopholes?" Isolde's mouth curved slightly, like Hermione had said something pleasing. "Exactly," Isolde said. "Welcome to Slytherin education." Ron looked like he wanted to argue, but he stayed quiet. Because somewhere deep down, even Ron knew, fists didn't win against paper. Not in the Ministry's world. Scene 3, the first lesson. How to kill a class without casting a spell. Umbridge's first defense lesson was a funeral. Not for a person. For the subject. She swept into the classroom in pink, smiling like she'd been invited to tea, and wrote her name on the board in looping handwriting. Then she placed a stack of books on the desk and said brightly, "You will be following the approved curriculum." The approved book was thin, glossy, and smelled like censorship. Hermione flipped through it and went pale. "This doesn't teach anything," Hermione whispered. Isolde's voice was low. "It teaches obedience." Umbridge began speaking about the danger of practicing defensive spells, about the Ministry's belief that students do not need practical defense. Harry's hands clenched under the desk. When she finished, Hermione's hand shot up. Umbridge smiled. "Yes, Miss Granger." Hermione asked, voice clear, "How are we meant to defend ourselves against dark magic without practicing?" Umbridge's smile tightened. "There is no need to defend yourself against dark magic at Hogwarts, Miss Granger." Harry felt the bond pulse cold anger from Isolde. Isolde raised her hand. Umbridge looked slightly surprised, like she hadn't expected Slytherin to question her. "Yes, Miss Rosier?" Isolde's voice was calm enough to be deadly. "Is a ministry asserting that dark magic no longer exists?" A ripple went through the room. Umbridge's smile twitched. "Certainly not. But—" Isolde continued without raising her voice. "Then would it not be logical to prepare for its existence?" Umbridge's eyes narrowed. "Hogwarts has never been safer." Harry's scar prickled faintly. Hermione's hand rose again. "What about the Triwizard Tournament last year?" Umbridge's smile sharpened. "That was an unfortunate exception, dear." Harry's jaw clenched. Isolde's voice cut in smooth. "And if there is another exception?" Umbridge's gaze fixed on Isolde, the sweetness turning brittle. "Then the Ministry will handle it." Isolde blinked once. "The Ministry denied the return of you-know-who." The room went dead silent. Umbridge's smile disappeared for a fraction of a second. Then it returned brighter, sharper, more dangerous. "Well," Umbridge said softly, "we don't say such disruptive things in class, do we?" Harry felt the bond pulse with a warning. "Now we see her." Umbridge's voice stayed sweet. "Detention, Miss Rosier." A few students gasped. Isolde didn't flinch. "What rule did I break?" Isolde asked calmly. Umbridge's eyes narrowed. "I do not need to justify my discipline." Isolde tilted her head. "You do, actually. Hogwarts is still governed by its charter. Discipline requires violation." Umbridge's smile tightened until it looked painful. "Detention," she repeated. Isolde's gaze stayed level. "Very well." Harry stared at Isolde, shock and anger twisting in his chest. She just walked into punishment on purpose. When the class ended, students poured out intense murmurs. Harry grabbed Isolde's arm lightly in the corridor. Why did you do that? Isolde's eyes flicked to his hand, then to his face. Her emotion through the bond was cold and steady. Because now we have a record, she said, and because she revealed something important. Harry's voice was tight. What? Isolde leaned closer, voice low. She doesn't follow rules. She pretends rules are hers. That arrogance can be used. Hermione rushed up, furious. Isolde, that was reckless. Isolde looked at Hermione. It was bait. Ron muttered, "You're insane." Isolde's gaze flicked to Ron. "Thank you." Harry swallowed, trying to understand. Isolde's voice softened by a fraction only for him. "She is here to isolate you," Isolde murmured. "So we will not give her the satisfaction of acting like frightened children." Harry's throat tightened. "But detention, what will she do to you?" Isolde's eyes went cold again. "Find out. Then we counter." Harry hated how that sounded. He hated that he could feel a flicker of unease beneath her control, like she didn't know either, but refused to show it. Harry felt the bond tighten, and he realized this wasn't just strategy. This was Isolde stepping into fire so Harry could see where the flames were. Scene 4: Sabotage, Slytherin style. That evening, Harry, Hermione, and Isolde met in an unused classroom on the third floor. No candes. No dramatic speeches. Just a table, a stack of parchment, and Isolde's wand drawing a subtle privacy ward in the air. Hermione watched, impressed despite herself. "You can cast that?" Hermione asked. Isolde didn't look up. "Yes." Hermione frowned. "That's advanced." Isolde's mouth twitched. "So is staying alive." Harry leaned forward. "Tell us the plan." Isolde finished the ward and sat. "Umbridge will not be defeated by shouting," Isolde said. "She will be defeated by paperwork, precedent, and humiliation." Harry blinked. Humiliation? Isolde nodded once. "People like her survive on the illusion of authority. If we make her look incompetent using her own rules, we cut her legs out from under her." Hermione's eyes lit up despite the grimness. "So, we document everything." Isolde's gaze sharpened approvingly. "Yes, every detention, every decree, every contradiction." Harry frowned. "But what does that do?" "She's the Ministry." Isolde's voice was cool. "The Ministry is not one person. It is factions. Even corrupt systems have enemies. If we create evidence, we give our enemies weapons." Hermione nodded slowly, already thinking. Ron wasn't there. Harry felt that absence like a bruise. He pushed it aside. "Okay," Harry said. "So how do we sabotage?" Isolde's eyes gleamed faintly. "Subtle sabotage. The best kind." She pulled parchment toward herself and began listing. 1. Question her in class politely. Make her say her logic out loud. 2. 3. File written complaints through proper channels. Use Hogwarts charter language. 4. 5. Force her to overreach. People like Umbridge can't resist expanding control. 6. 7. Use students as witnesses, not just Gryffindors, Ravenclaws, Hufflepuffs, even Slytherins. 8. 9. Make it boring. Bureaucracy dies when it has to work. 10. Harry stared. That's very Slytherin. Isolde's mouth curved slightly. Yes. Hermione hesitated, but Slytherins will side with her. Isolde's expression didn't change. Some will, some won't. Harry's brow furrowed. Who won't? Isolde tapped her quill thoughtfully. Blaise Zabini, she said. He doesn't like anyone telling him what to do. He'll pretend he doesn't care, but he hates ministry interference. Hermione blinked. How do you know? Isolde's gaze slid to Hermione. Because I pay attention. Harry asked, who else? Theodore not, Isolde said. Quiet, observant. His father is dangerous, but Theodore is not eager to be swallowed by that life. Harry's stomach tightened. Malfoy? Isolde's eyes went flat. Draco Malfoy will posture. He's desperate for approval. He's also not as stupid as he looks. But he's not safe to recruit yet. Hermione swallowed. Is it safe to bring Slytherins into this? Isolde's tone was blunt. Safe is relative. Useful is better. Harry exhaled. So we're building a coalition. Isolde nodded once. Yes. Gryffindor courage. Ravenclaw intelligence. Hufflepuff loyalty. Slytherin strategy. Hermione's eyes widened slightly. That sounds like what Dumbledore always says he wants. Isolde's mouth tightened. Dumbledore wants unity. He doesn't want the mess that comes with building it. Harry felt the bond, pulse, quiet agreement. Then Isolde slid another parchment across the table. This, she said, is the first move. Harry looked down. It was a neatly written complaint formal language, references to Hogwarts charter clauses, and an argument that denying practical defense instruction violated student safety guidelines. Hermione's eyes shone. You wrote this already? Isolde's gaze was calm. I assumed Umbridge would be a problem. Harry stared at her, half impressed and half alarmed. You planned for this? Isolde shrugged slightly. War planning is what my family does best. Harry's chest tightened at the mention of her family. Hermione took the parchment carefully. We'll need signatures. Isolde nodded. Not just Gryffindor signatures. Harry looked up. You're going to get Slytherins to sign? Isolde's eyes gleamed. Yes. Harry felt a strange twist in his chest, hope and fear together. Because if Slytherin signed, it meant something bigger than rebellion. It meant cracks in the old house divide. And cracks were where light got in. Scene 5, the Slytherin court. Slytherin common room was not like Gryffindor's. It didn't feel warm. It felt sharp. Low ceilings, greenish light, lake water pressing against glass like the castle was underwater. Students sat in clusters like small kingdoms, alliances shifting with whispers. Isolde walked in like she belonged at the center of it. Harry didn't go with her. He wasn't stupid. But later, when she found him near the library, Harry saw the proof. A folded parchment in her hand. Hermione gasped when she saw it. You got signatures? Hermione whispered. Isolde's mouth twitched. Some. Harry stared down. There were names he recognized. Not many, but enough to make his heart pound. Blaise Zabini. Theodore, not a few other students Harry didn't know well, but whose names carried weight in pure blood circles. Hermione looked stunned. How? Isolde's eyes were cool. I didn't ask them to support you. I asked them to support themselves. Harry blinked. What does that mean? Isolde's voice was blunt. Umbridge is not here for you alone. She is here to control Hogwarts. That includes Slytherin. Slytherins don't like being controlled. Hermione whispered, That's brilliant. Isolde's gaze slid to Hermione. It's survival. Harry felt something warm flicker through the bond, quiet satisfaction. Harry swallowed. What did they want in return? Isolde's expression didn't change. Nothing. Yet. Harry's stomach tightened. That sounds ominous. Isolde's mouth curved slightly. It's politics. Everything has a price. Better to know the price than pretend it doesn't exist. Harry stared at her, and he realized something that made his chest tighten. Isolde didn't just want to help him. She wanted to change the board. She wanted to build a world where choosing a side wasn't decided by house color. A gray world. Not good. Not evil. Just willing to survive without being owned. Scene 6, Dumbledore's army becomes something else. Harry had expected the meeting in the Hog's Head to feel like rebellion. In canon, it had been chaotic students gathering, nervous, desperate. In this version, it was organized. Because Isolde was there. They sat in the back corner, privacy warded. Hermione had recruited openly, careful but determined. Word spread quickly because fear spreads faster than rumor. Students packed the pub's back room. Cho Chang came with a cluster of Ravenclaws. Ernie Macmillan arrived, stiff and serious. Lavender and Parvati whispered excitedly. And then, a ripple moved through the room. A few Slytherins entered. Not the loud ones. Not the proud ones. The quiet ones. Blaise Zabini, expression bored like he'd wandered in by accident. Theodore Nott, eyes sharp, silent. A couple others who stayed near the walls, as if ready to vanish. Murmurs erupted. Why are they here? Is this a trap? Are we insane? Harry's nerves spiked. He felt the bond pulse-cold command from Isolde. Hold steady. Hermione looked at Harry like she was bracing for conflict. Harry stood. He looked around the room. Then he said clearly, Umbridge isn't teaching us how to defend ourselves. A murmur of agreement. Harry continued, voice steady. Voldemort is back. The room stirred, some faces pale, some skeptical. Harry didn't flinch. And even if you don't believe me, Harry said, you know something is wrong. Because the Ministry wouldn't be here if everything was fine. That landed. Harry gestured to the Slytherins. They're here because they don't want Hogwarts turned into a Ministry prison either. A few Gryffindors glared. One student, Zachariah Smith, snorted. Or they're here to report back. Blaise Zabini spoke for the first time, voice smooth and lazy. If I wanted to report, I wouldn't announce my presence. The room tensed. Theodore Nott's eyes flicked to Harry, thoughtful. Isolde stood. The room went quiet in a different way. Not because they liked her, because she carried authority like a blade. This group will not survive if it becomes a house war, Isolde said calmly. House wars are childish. This is real. Someone muttered, easy for you to say Slytherin. Isolde's eyes snapped toward the voice. Easy? I will be punished for being here. I will be watched. I will be suspected. And if Voldemort wins, my family name will not protect me, because I am not obedient. Silence. Isolde's gaze swept the room. If you want to learn defense, you learn it together. If you want to play, who can trust who? Leave. No one moved. Harry felt something tighten in his chest. This wasn't just a club. This was a crack forming in the old Hogwarts shape. Hermione swallowed and said softly, we need rules. Isolde nodded once. We do. She lifted her wand and tapped the table. A parchment appeared blank, waiting. Hermione stared. You brought. Isolde cut her off. Yes. Isolde spoke, voice calm and absolute. 1. No house insults. 2. 3. No reporting. Anyone caught will be neutralized socially, legally, magically. 4. 5. Skill first. Your fear and your pride are irrelevant. 6. 7. Protection of members. If Umbridge targets one of us, we respond as a group. 8. The room held its breath. Harry looked around. Agreed? Slowly, hands rose. One by one. Even some Slytherins. Harry's heart pounded. Hermione's eyes shone. And somewhere deep in Harry's chest, a new feeling bloomed. Not comfort, not safety, but something close to power. The power of not being alone. Harry looked at Isolde. Their eyes met. The bond hummed steady, fierce aligned. Then Harry said, voice clear, welcome to Dumbledore's army. Isolde's mouth twitched faintly. Later, she would tell him the name was dramatic. But she didn't stop him, because sometimes dramatic was what made people brave enough to keep showing up. Scene 7, the first training session. The room of requirement opened for them, like the castle itself had chosen a side. It transformed into a wide space lined with cushions and dummies and mirrors. Touchez-les softly. Targets floated near the far wall. Students murmured in awe. Harry stood at the front, nervous. He'd taught before last year, helping others with spells in the Triwizard Aftermath. But this felt different. This was responsibility. Hermione stood beside him, clipboard already in hand, because Hermione would probably bring a clipboard to a dragon fight. Isolde stood just behind, arms folded, eyes scanning the room like she was counting exits and threats. Harry took a breath. Okay, he said. We start with shields. Groans. Nervous laughter. Harry raised his wand. Protego. His shield sprang up steady, layered, stronger than last year. Some students stared. Zabini raised an eyebrow, impressed despite himself. Isolde's voice cut in quietly, for the whole room to hear. Shields fail because you treat them like walls. They're not walls. They are weaves. Harry glanced back at her. Isolde nodded once. Harry turned back to the group. Right, Harry said. Weave, not wall. Everyone try. Spells flashed across the room. Some shields flickered weakly. Some were strong. Some failed instantly. Neville's wavered, then strengthened when Harry adjusted his stance. Cho's was elegant but thin. Ernie's was stubborn and thick. Then Theodore not cast his. It was quiet, clean, controlled. Harry's eyebrows rose. Isolde's eyes narrowed, pleased. Hermione whispered, "He's good." Harry nodded. They trained for an hour. Then another. Students sweated, laughed nervously, improved. And something changed. Not all at once. Not dramatically, but in the way they began to look at each other. Not as house rivals. As allies. As people who wanted to live. When the session ended, students filed out, whispering excitedly. Harry stayed behind with Hermione and Isolde. Hermione looked exhausted but happy. That worked, Hermione whispered like she couldn't believe it. Harry exhaled. Yeah. Isolde's expression remained controlled, but Harry felt her satisfaction through the bond tight, bright, dangerous. Good, Isolde said. Now Umbridge will notice. Harry's stomach tightened, and then? Isolde's eyes gleamed coldly. Then we begin the real game. Harry swallowed. He looked at the room of requirement, at the dummies, the targets, the space that felt like the only honest classroom in Hogwarts. And he realized something that made his blood run cold and hot at once. They weren't just breaking rules. They were building a resistance. And resistance always gets noticed. Scene 1, the vision that smelled like a trap. The first time it happened, Harry thought it was just another nightmare. He'd been having them all year, dreams where corridors stretched too long, doors locked themselves, and laughter echoed from behind walls he couldn't break. Sometimes it was the graveyard again. Sometimes it was the maze. Sometimes it was just Voldemort's voice, low and pleased, as if the world itself was something he owned. But this time felt sharp. Harry jerked awake in the Gryffindor dormitory with sweat freezing on his skin. The room was dark, moonlight slicing across the beds like a blade. Seamus snored softly. Dean muttered in his sleep. Harry's scar burned. Not the dull throb of memory. A live wire of pain. He pressed his palm to his forehead and hissed, teeth clenched. And then the images slammed into him so vivid it was like he'd been shoved through a door. A room lined with shelves. Dust. Shadows. A cold floor. Chains clinking. Sirius Black, kneeling, face twisted in pain, hair damp with sweat, eyes wild. A laugh high delighted. Bellatrix. And Voldemort's voice, soft as silk. He dies because of you, Harry Potter. Harry sat bolt upright, gasping. The scar blazed again. He could still see it, like the vision was burned onto the inside of his eyelids. And then he felt it through the bond. A jolt of icy awareness. Isolde. Not asleep. Not dreaming. Her presence hit him like cold water thrown on fire. What happened? Not words, never words, but the emotion carried the question perfectly. Harry yanked on his robes, hands shaking. He didn't even think. He bolted. Down the spiral staircase, past portraits that grumbled, through corridors that felt too long and too empty. He didn't stop until he reached the place they'd made their war room, an abandoned classroom that smelled faintly of old chalk and fresh warts. Isolde was already there. Of course she was. She stood near the window, wand in hand, hair pinned back, eyes sharp and bright, like she'd been waiting for the world to make a move. She looked at Harry and didn't ask what was wrong, because she already knew. You saw him, she said. Harry swallowed hard. Serious. He's being tortured. Isolde's gaze didn't soften. It sharpened. That's a trap, she said immediately. Harry's stomach twisted. You don't know that. Isolde stepped closer, voice cold and certain. Yes, I do. Harry flared. You weren't there. Isolde's eyes flashed. And neither were you. Harry froze. Isolde's voice dropped lower, deadly calm. You were inside Voldemort's head. That is not a reliable witness. That is a leash. Harry's breath came ragged. But what if it's real? Isolde stared at him like she wanted to shake him and couldn't decide if it would help. Then we confirm, she said, before you do something heroic and stupid. Harry's jaw clenched. You said you know I won't stop. Isolde's eyes narrowed. I know you won't stop emotionally. That doesn't mean you can't stop tactically. Harry's scar pulsed again, pain spiking, and the vision flickered behind his eyes, Sirius gasping, Bellatrix laughing. Harry's chest tightened. We don't have time. Isolde's hand snapped out, gripping Harry's wrist hard enough to sting. Look at me, she ordered. Harry's eyes locked on hers. Isolde's voice was low, steady, cutting through panic like a blade through cloth. Panic is what Voldemort wants. If you run straight into his trap, you're not rescuing Sirius. You are delivering yourself. Harry's throat worked. Then what do we do? Isolde didn't hesitate. We build a rescue like Slytherins, she said. Quiet, fussed, with confirmation first and exits planned. Harry's breathing slowed, not because he was calmer, but because the presence of a plan was oxygen. Isolde nodded once. Wake Granger. Then we move. Harry blinked. Ron? Isolde's mouth tightened. We take who is useful. The words were harsh. But Harry didn't argue, because Sirius's face was still burning in his mind. And if this was a trap, then Voldemort was using Sirius's life like bait. Harry wouldn't forgive himself if he hesitated and Sirius died. And Isolde Cold, practical Isolde, was giving him the only thing that might save both of them. A way to hesitate without wasting time. Scene 2 confirmation, or the art of not being played. Hermione arrived 5 minutes later with her hair messy, eyes wide, and her wand already in her hand. What happened? She demanded, breathless. Harry blurted it out. The vision. Sirius. Torture. Bellatrix. Hermione's face went pale. Then she looked at Isolde because Hermione had learned, slowly, that Isolde's first reaction was usually the one closest to truth. Isolde said, it's a trap. Hermione swallowed, forcing her mind into motion. How do we confirm? Harry's voice shook. Umbridge's office. The flu. Hermione flinched. She'll be there. Isolde's eyes gleamed. Then we remove her. Harry stared. How? Isolde pulled a folded parchment out of her robe like she'd been holding it for months. Hermione frowned. What's that? Isolde opened it on the table. It was a form official-looking, stamped with a seal that made Harry's eyebrows jump. Hermione leaned closer. Is that a ministry header? Isolde's mouth curved slightly, a convincing imitation. Hermione stared. Isolde. Isolde didn't look guilty. It's not illegal if it never leaves Hogwarts. Harry blinked. That feels illegal. Isolde's eyes slid to him. Welcome to war. Hermione inhaled slowly. Then, because Hermione was Hermione, asked the next logical question. What does it say? Isolde tapped the parchment. An urgent request for Umbridge to attend an immediate inspection review in the staff room. It references an educational decree she herself pushed through. She won't ignore it. Her ego won't allow it. Hermione's eyes widened. That's actually brilliant. Isolde nodded once. I know. Harry's stomach tightened. And while she's gone, we use the flu to check Grimmauld Place. Hermione nodded sharply. If Sirius answers, it's real. If he doesn't, Isolde cut in. It's still likely a trap, because Voldemort would know you check. But it gives us data. Harry swallowed. And if it's a trap? Isolde looked directly at him. Then we go anyway. Hermione's head snapped up. Isolde. Isolde's voice stayed calm. Because Harry will go anyway. Better he goes with us than alone. Harry felt something twist in his chest, gratitude that hurt. Hermione's jaw tightened, but she nodded reluctantly. Okay, we do it your way. Isolde reached in her pocket and pulled out another small object, a thin ring of metal etched with tiny runes. Harry frowned. What's that? A focus charm, Isolde said, sliding across the table. If Umbridge catches you in her office, she will try to dominate the situation. This charm helps you keep your head clear under pressure. Hermione blinked. You made that? Isolde's expression didn't change. I made several. Harry stared at her, unsettled by how prepared she always was. Then Isolde's gaze sharpened. We also need a messenger. Hermione frowned. To who? Isolde's eyes flicked toward the ceiling, as if she could see through floors. Snape. Harry stiffened. No. Isolde didn't flinch. Yes. Hermione looked alarmed. Harry, in canon we use Snape to alert the Order. Harry snapped, and he did nothing. Isolde's voice cut through, sharp. Because you gave him an emotional message wrapped in suspicion. You don't ask Snape for help like a Gryffindor. Harry's teeth clenched. How do you ask him then? Isolde's gaze went icy. Like a Slytherin, with information and leverage. Hermione's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Isolde, you said Snape was feeding you some information. Isolde didn't confirm or deny. She simply said, Snape values two things, control and outcomes. We offer him both. Harry swallowed, heart pounding. Then he nodded. Fine, but you talked to him. Isolde's mouth curved slightly. Obviously. Scene 3, Umbridge's office, borrowed for 5 minutes. The next afternoon, the castle felt like it was holding its breath. Umbridge's educational decrees had multiplied like fungus. Rules were posted everywhere, each one stamped with smug pink authority. No gatherings of 3 or more students in unauthorized clubs, in hallway loitering, and defensive spell practice. Hogwarts had become a school where fear was called order. Harry, Hermione, and Isolde moved like thieves. Hermione carried the fake ministry memo tucked neatly into a folder. Isolde walked with the calm confidence of someone who belonged in any corridor she wanted. Harry tried to match her. His scar prickled faintly. His stomach twisted with dread. They reached Umbridge's door. Hermione knocked. A sweet voice trilled, "Come in." The office smelled like perfume and control. Plates of kittens mewed softly from the walls, their eyes following students like surveillance. Umbridge sat behind her desk, smiling. "Oh," she said brightly, "Harry Potter and Miss Granger." And her eyes narrowed slightly, "Miss Rosier." Isolde gave a small, perfect nod. "Professor." Umbridge's smile tightened. "What can I do for you?" Hermione stepped forward, voice trembling slightly but steady. "Professor, we were asked to deliver this immediately." She placed a folder on the desk. Umbridge's eyes gleamed. She opened it, then her expression shifted. Not fear, not surprise. Interest. Because it mentioned her. Because it implied her importance. Umbridge's voice went syrupy. "Oh my, an inspection review?" Isolde's voice was mild. "The memo states it requires your presence within 10 minutes. Umbridge pursed her lips. How irritating. The ministry is so demanding. Harry bit down on the urge to roll his eyes. Umbridge stood, smoothing her cardigan. "Very well. You may wait here." Harry's heart jumped. Wait here? That wasn't the plan. Isolde didn't blink. "Professor," she said smoothly, "the memo also specifies that only staff may be present. It mentions confidential compliance evaluations." Umbridge paused, then smiled again. Oh, of course. She swept to the door, eyes sharp. Don't touch anything. Then she left, heels clicking like a countdown. The instant the door shut, Hermione whispered, "Go." Harry rushed to the fireplace, grabbing the flue powder from the mantel. Isolde raised her wand, murmured a quiet spell, and the office door clicked, locking itself. Hermione stared. You can do that? Isolde's eyes stayed on Harry. Focus. Harry threw powder into the grate. Grimmauld Place, he hissed. Green flames roared. Harry shoved his head into the fire. The world tilted. And then he saw it, number 12's drawing room. Empty. For a second, Harry's heart fell. Then a shape moved in the background. Sirius stepped into view, eyes wide. Harry? Sirius hissed. What are you doing? Relief hit Harry so hard his throat tightened. Sirius, Harry gasped. Are you okay? Sirius's eyes narrowed instantly. I'm Euphina. What's wrong? Harry's stomach dropped. It wasn't real. The vision was false. Sirius wasn't being tortured. It was a trap. Harry felt his blood go cold anyway. Voldemort showed me, Harry started. Sirius swore. He's trying to lure you. Harry's eyes stung. I know. Sirius's voice sharpened. Then don't go. Harry swallowed. His hands trembled. I can't. What if next time it's real? Sirius's face softened. Harry, listen to me. A noise behind Sirius made him turn sharply. Then Sirius's expression changed, sudden alarm. Someone's coming, Sirius snapped. You need to get out of there now. Harry's breath caught. Sirius. Now Sirius barked. The fire flared. Harry pulled back, heart hammering. Hermione grabbed his sleeve. What did he say? Harry's voice was hoarse. He's fine. It was a trap. Hermione's shoulders sagged in relief. Then Harry's chest tightened, dread returning. He said someone's coming, Harry said quickly. Isolde's eyes snapped to the door. Umbridge, Hermione whispered. Isolde's jaw tightened. Too soon. They moved instantly. Hermione scrambled to unlock the door, hands shaking. Isolde flicked her wand, muttering a spell that erased their traces. Ash swept back into the box. Papers straightened, nothing disturbed. Harry's heart pounded. The door handle rattled. Umbridge's voice sang, Children? Hermione's fingers fumbled. Harry's scar prickled sharply. Then the door swung open. Umbridge stood there, smiling. And behind her, two members of the Inquisitorial Squad. One of them was Draco Malfoy, eyes bright with smug anticipation. Umbridge's smile widened. And what exactly were you doing in my office? Hermione's face went pale. Harry's throat went dry. Isolde stepped forward, calm as ice. We were leaving, Isolde said. Umbridge's eyes narrowed. No, you weren't. She looked at Harry, voice sweet. Harry Potter, you look flushed. Were you using my fireplace? Harry felt panic rise. Then Isolde's presence hit him through the bond like a command. Do not react. Isolde's voice stayed mild. Professor, if you are accusing us of something, you will need evidence. Umbridge's smile sharpened. I don't need evidence when I have authority. Isolde tilted her head. That's a misunderstanding of law. Umbridge's eyes flashed. Detention, she snapped. Harry's stomach dropped. Umbridge stepped closer, lowering her voice. And perhaps a conversation. Her gaze slid to Harry's scar. Harry's skin crawled. Then Isolde moved. Not with a wand raised. With words. Professor, Isolde said softly, the memo you just attended was fake. Umbridge froze. Hermione's eyes widened in horror. Umbridge's face went tight with rage. Isolde continued, calm and lethal. You're going to scream. You're going to try to punish us. You're going to make a scene. Umbridge hissed you. Isolde's gaze held hers. And then you will have to explain to the Ministry why you abandoned your post for a memo that wasn't real. Umbridge's lips trembled with fury. Isolde's voice stayed smooth. You cannot admit you were fooled, so you will do what bureaucrats always do. Umbridge's eyes narrowed. And what is that, Miss Rosier? Isolde smiled, faintly first time Harry had seen it in public. You will bury it, Isolde said. You will punish quietly, not loudly, because loudly would make you look incompetent. Umbridge stared, hatred radiating. For a heartbeat, Harry thought Umbridge might snap and curse them. Then Umbridge smiled again too wide. Detention, she said softly. All three of you. Hermione gasped. Professor. Umbridge cut her off. Oh, Miss Granger. Don't pretend innocence. It's unflattering. She leaned in closer to Harry, voice a whisper. And you, Harry Potter, you will regret lying. Harry's scar prickled sharply. Then Umbridge turned and swept out, pink and poisonous. The inquisitorial squad followed. Draco Malfoy paused in the doorway, looking at Isolde with something like confusion, like he couldn't decide if she was brilliant or insane. Then he left. The door closed. Hermione exhaled shakily. That went badly. Isolde's eyes were cold. It went exactly as expected. Harry stared at her. We just got detention. Isolde's gaze flicked to him. Detention is a price. Sirius is alive. We gain confirmation. Now we act. Hermione's voice trembled. Act how? Isolde's eyes gleamed. We tell Snape. Harry swallowed hard. They moved. Scene 4 Snape, leverage, and a message that gets through. They found Snape outside his classroom, robes billowing like he'd been born offended. His eyes flicked to Harry instantly, cold and sharp. Potter, Snape sneered. What disaster have you brought to my corridor this time? Harry's hands clenched. Isolde stepped forward before Harry could speak. Professor Snape, Isolde said, voice calm. Snape's expression shifted, slightly surprise, then calculation. Miss Rosier, Snape said softly. How unusual. Isolde didn't flinch. Harry Potter received a vision of Sirius Black being tortured. Snape's eyes narrowed. And you believe it? Isolde's voice stayed steady. It's a trap. Snape's lip curled. Then why bring this to me? Isolde's gaze held his. Because Harry will go anyway. Harry opened his mouth. Isolde cut him off with a glance that said, do not ruin this. Snape stared at Isolde, then at Harry, as if judging what kind of stupidity this was. Hermione whispered urgently, we confirmed Sirius was safe 5 minutes ago, but he said someone was coming he might be in danger. Snape's eyes sharpened at that. Confirmed? How? Harry's face burned. We used Umbridge's fireplace. Snape's expression went murderous. You imbecile. Isolde's voice cut through cold. Insults later. Action now. Snape's eyes flashed. For a heartbeat, Harry thought Snape might hex Isolde for daring to command him. Instead, Snape's gaze sharpened, something deeper than hatred flickering in it duty, maybe. Snape said, voice low, what exactly do you want? Isolde didn't hesitate. You're going to alert the order. Quietly. Immediately. You're going to ensure someone checks Grimmauld Place and secures Sirius Black. Snape stared. And why should I do as you ask? Isolde's voice went even colder. Because if Sirius Black dies, Harry Potter will go to the Ministry. If Harry Potter goes to the Ministry, Voldemort will get what he wants. And if Voldemort gets what he wants, everyone loses, including you. Silence. Snape's eyes flicked over Isolde, like he was seeing her properly for the first time. Then he said softly, you speak like a Slytherin. Isolde's mouth tightened. I am one. Snape's gaze sharpened. And yet you stand beside him. Isolde's eyes didn't flinch. Yes. Snape's eyes flickered something unreadable. Then Snape nodded once, sharp. Go back to your common rooms, Snape snapped. And do not move unless I tell you. Harry's stomach tightened. You're actually going to. Snape cut him off. Get out. They left. And as they walked away, Harry felt something through the bond Isolde's cold tension easing a fraction. Not relief. Not victory. Just the knowledge that the message had landed. Harry's stomach still twisted. Because the trap wasn't avoided. It was simply delayed. Scene 5, the decision Harry can't not make. That night, Harry tried to sleep. He failed, because the vision came again. Not as strong, not as sharp, but persistent. A whisper at the edge of his mind. Serious. Pain. Bellatrix laughing. Hurry. Harry lay awake, fists clenched, feeling like his own brain was being used as a puppet string. Beside him in the dormitory, Ron turned in his sleep, unaware. Harry stared into darkness until his eyes hurt. Then the bond pulsed. Isolde. Not asleep either. Her presence pressed against him, steady and cold. Not soothing. Anchoring. Harry sat up, silent, and left the dormitory. He found Isolde in the same abandoned classroom, sitting by the window like she'd never moved. Hermione was there too, pale and tense, with parchment spread across the table maps, notes, contingency plans. Harry's voice came out raw. We have to go. Hermione flinched. Harry, Snape said. Harry shook his head. I can't wait. I can't just sit. Isolde's voice cut in quietly. I know. Harry stared at her. Isolde stood, walking toward him slowly. Her eyes held his, and through the bond Harry felt the truth behind her coldness. She didn't want to go. She wanted to keep him safe. But she also knew that if she tried to stop him, he would go without her. So she did the only thing a strategist could do. She joined. We go, Isolde said simply, but we go correctly. Hermione swallowed. How? Isolde turned back to the table, pointing. Step 1. We do not fight our way out of Hogwarts like idiots, Isolde said. Step 2. We use what Umbridge gave us. Harry frowned. Detention? Isolde nodded. Detention is access. Hermione's eyes widened. You mean her office? Again. Isolde's gaze was sharp. Yes, when she expects us, where she thinks she controls us. Harry's stomach twisted. That's insane. Isolde's mouth twitched. Yes, that's why it works. Hermione whispered, and once we're in contact with the Order. Isolde's voice was cold. We will not rely on adults to save us. Harry stared. We're still going to the Ministry. Isolde's eyes held his. Yes. Hermione's voice trembled. Harry, why can't we just wait for confirmation? Harry's voice cracked. Because what if Voldemort makes it real while we wait? Silence. That was the horror of it. Even knowing it was a trap didn't erase the danger. It just made it more cruel. Isolde stepped closer, voice low. Then we go. But we go with tactics. We take people. Hermione's eyes widened. You want DA members? Isolde nodded. We need a team, not a parade. Harry swallowed. Who? Isolde glanced at Hermione. The ones who won't freeze. The ones who can keep secrets. The ones who can fight. Hermione's lips tightened. Neville. Isolde nodded once. Neville. Harry's stomach tightened. Luna. Hermione blinked, then nodded. Luna. Isolde added, Ginny. Harry's breath caught slightly. Ginny will come. Hermione whispered, and one more. Isolde's gaze sharpened. Zabini. Hermione went still. A Slytherin? Isolde's voice stayed calm. If we're going into the Ministry, we need someone who thinks like a Ministry man. Zabini's mother plays those games. Harry swallowed hard. Hermione hesitated, then nodded, because Hermione was learning that survival required uncomfortable choices. Isolde's eyes flicked to Harry, and through the bond he felt her command again. We go together, or you don't go at all. Harry nodded. Okay, he said hoarsely. We go together. Scene 6, the breakout that doesn't look like a breakout. Umbridge expected them. That was her mistake. Detention started in her office at 9. Umbridge smiled when they arrived. Oh, she trilled, my favorite troublemakers. Harry's stomach churned. Hermione's hands trembled slightly. Isolde didn't flinch. Umbridge gestured sweetly. Seat. They sat. Umbridge picked up a quill, black, sharp. Harry's blood ran cold. He knew that quill. He bled for it. Isolde's gaze flicked to it, and Harry felt her emotion spike cold fury. Umbridge smiled. Now, Harry Potter, let's talk about lying. Harry's jaw clenched. Then Isolde moved. Professor, Isolde said politely, before we begin, I have a procedural question. Umbridge blinked, irritated. Procedural? Isolde nodded calmly. Are detentions recorded in the official Hogwarts discipline ledger or maintained privately by staff? Umbridge's smile tightened. Why would that matter? Isolde's voice stayed smooth. I'm writing an appeal. Umbridge's eyes gleamed because Umbridge loved the idea of crushing an appeal. Oh, Umbridge said, voice sweet. How adorable. She leaned forward. Private, of course. Isolde nodded, as if satisfied. Then she flicked her wand so fast Harry barely saw it. A soft click. The office door locked. Umbridge's smile faltered. What? Hermione moved instantly, throwing powder into the fireplace. Grimmauld, place, Hermione hissed. Green fire flared. Umbridge's face twisted with rage. You. Isolde raised her wand, voice calm. Silencio. Umbridge's mouth opened. No sound came out. Her eyes went wide with fury. Harry's heart hammered. Hermione shoved her head into the fire. Order, she gasped. The fire roared. A second later, a voice snapped back through the flames. Remus Lupin. Hermione? What? Hermione blurted. Serious vision trap, ministry, please. Remus's voice sharpened instantly. Don't go. Harry shoved Hermione aside, face close to the fire. We have to, he might make it real. Remus's voice was fierce. Harry, listen, Sirius is safe. We've secured the house. Harry's chest tightened. Secured. So Sirius was safe. But the Department of Mysteries wasn't. Voldemort still wanted the prophecy. And Harry could still feel the trap tightening like a noose. Harry said hoarsely, then get to the ministry. Now. Remus's voice turned deadly. We're on our way. Harry pulled back. Umbridge, silent, glaring, clawed at her wand. Isolde stepped closer, wand raised. Her voice was low, cold. If you move, I break your wrist. Umbridge's eyes widened. Harry stared at Isolde, shocked by the ruthlessness in her tone. Isolde didn't look at Harry. She was watching Umbridge like she was a venomous animal. Through the bond, Harry felt it. Isolde wasn't enjoying this. She was choosing efficiency over softness. Because that's what war required. Hermione whispered, we need to leave. Isolde nodded once. She flicked her wand again, another quiet spell, and the fireplace flared brighter. A portkey shimmered into existence on Umbridge's desk, a simple paperweight, now glowing faintly blue. Harry blinked. You. Isolde's voice stayed calm. I prepared. Harry's stomach flipped. To where? Isolde's eyes were cold. Near the ministry. Somewhere untraceable. Hermione stared. Isolde, how did you? Isolde cut her off. Later. Umbridge snarled silently, eyes wild. Harry's scar prickled. Time was running. Isolde grabbed Harry's wrist. Hermione grabbed Harry's other arm. Harry grabbed the paperweight. The portkey yanked, and the pink office vanished. Scene 7, the ministry, a maze with no hedges. They landed in an alley that smelled like rain and old brick. Harry stumbled, heart pounding. Hermione gagged slightly. I hate portkeys. Isolde looked around instantly, scanning exits. Move. They moved. The others, Neville, Luna, Ginny, and Blaise Zabini, arrived seconds later via a second portkey Isolde had set. Zabini looked mildly offended by existing in a dirty alley. Charming, he drawled. Ginny's eyes were sharp. Where's Harry? Harry stepped forward. I'm here. Neville looked pale, but determined. We're really doing this. Luna blinked serenely. The ministry always smells like secrets. Isolde's voice cut in crisp. Enough. We enter, we move fast, and we do not split unless ordered. Harry stared at Zabini. You came. Zabini shrugged. I don't like Umbridge. I dislike Voldemort's new order even more. Isolde nodded once. Good. They slipped into the ministry through the public entrance, cloaks pulled close. At night, the atrium was eerie, fountain silent, gold statues gleaming under dim lights, the air too still. Harry's scar prickled. The bond hummed Isolde's, focus razor sharp. They moved toward the elevators. Isolde murmured directions. Department of Mysteries is below. We go down. We don't talk. The elevator doors opened. They stepped in. The elevator descended. Harry's stomach twisted tighter with every level. Then the doors slid open onto a dark corridor. A sign glinted faintly. Department of Mysteries. The hallway felt like the Black Lake, silent, deep, full of things you didn't want touching you. They moved forward. A door appeared. Then another. Then a circular room with many identical doors. Harry's heart hammered. The trap felt real here. Physical. Isolde stepped ahead, wand raised. Potter, which door? Harry swallowed. The pull in his scar flared like a compass needle. He pointed. That one. They entered. The room beyond was lined with shelves of glowing orbs prophecies. Harry's breath hitched. His scar burned. He could feel it like the room recognized him. Then a voice echoed softly. Well done. The lights flared. Death Eaters stepped out of shadows like they'd been waiting behind the air itself. Masks gleaming. Wands raised. Harry's heart stopped. Isolde's voice cut through, cold and calm. Formation. They moved without thinking, DA, training snapping into place. Ginny beside Neville. Hermione beside Luna. Zabini near Isolde. Harry centered, wand up. A Death Eater laughed. Children playing soldiers. Isolde's voice was smooth. And adults playing monsters. The Death Eater's laugh faltered. A figure stepped forward. Bellatrix Lestrange. Her eyes were bright with madness and delight. Harry Potter, she purred. We meet again. Harry's blood turned to ice. Bellatrix's gaze flicked past Harry, searching. Then she smiled wider. And where, she whispered, is my cousin? Harry's stomach dropped. Sirius wasn't here. Yet. Isolde's eyes narrowed sharply. Through the bond, Harry felt her sudden alarm, not for him. For Sirius. Because Bellatrix was here, hunting. And if the order arrived late, Bellatrix would pounce. Harry swallowed hard, wand shaking. Bellatrix laughed. Give me the prophecy, and you may live. Harry's scar screamed. A prophecy orb glowed brighter on the shelf, behind him calling. He reached for it without meaning to. Isolde's hand snapped out, grabbing his wrist. Don't, she hissed. Harry blinked. But Isolde's eyes blazed. That's what they want. Bellatrix smiled, delighted. Oh, the little rosier thinks she's clever. Harry's stomach tightened. Isolde. Isolde leaned close, voice low, rapid. We don't hand it over. We break it. Harry's breath caught. What? Isolde's gaze held his. Prophecy only matters if it's known. If we break it, we deny them information. Hermione whispered, horrified, but Isolde's eyes flicked to Hermione. Better it's lost than used. Harry's heart pounded. Bellatrix lifted her wand. Enough talking. Spells exploded. Red, green, purple lightning in a room full of glass futures. Harry threw up a shield. Isolde moved like a duelist, fast, precise, ruthless. She didn't shout stupefy like a warning. She fired silent curses that snapped wands from hands and sent Death Eaters stumbling. Zabini moved with smooth efficiency, hexing ankles, cutting off paths. Ginny's bat bogey hex sent one Death Eater shrieking in surprise. Neville's stunner actually landed, knocking someone back. Hermione's shields held strong, layered like Isolde had taught. Luna moved strangely, unpredictably, as if she was dancing around danger rather than running from it. Harry fought, heart pounding, trying not to look at Bellatrix. But Bellatrix kept circling, eyes hunting. "Where's Sirius?" she sang, delighted. Harry Scarburned. Then, footsteps thundered in the corridor. A shout. "Harry! Sirius!" He burst into the room like a storm wand raised, eyes wild, hair flying. Relief hit Harry so hard his knees nearly gave. Sirius fired a spell, blasting a Death Eater back. Bellatrix turned, face splitting into a grin so wide it looked painful. "Cousin," she shrieked. Sirius snarled, "Get away from him." Bellatrix laughed, and her wand snapped up. Isolde saw it. Harry felt it through the bond, the sudden spike of icy awareness. She didn't hesitate. She moved, not toward the prophecy, not toward safety, toward Bellatrix. Isolde's wand flicked, fast as thought. A curse hit Bellatrix's wrist sharp, stunning. Bellatrix's wand jerked, spell going wide, slicing into a shelf instead of Sirius. Orbs shattered like glass stars. Voices screamed into the air, prophecies breaking, secrets spilling. Harry's head spun. Bellatrix shrieked, stumbling back, eyes blazing with rage. Sirius lunged, firing again. Bellatrix recovered, laughter turning savage. Too slow, she hissed. Her wand snapped. A cursed white-hot shot towards Sirius. Isolde's shield snapped up instantly, layered weave catching most of it. But not all. The curse clipped Sirius's side. He staggered, face twisting, and fell to one knee, wounded, not dead, but hit hard enough to drop him. Harry's blood turned to ice. "Sirius!" Harry surged forward. Isolde grabbed his sleeve, yanking him back. "And oh," she snapped. "Bellatrix wants you close." Harry's chest heaved, rage tearing at him. Bellatrix laughed, eyes bright. "Come, Harry, come avenge him." Harry's scar screamed. Harry's wand trembled with fury. And then, in the chaos of shattering orbs, a prophecy orb has slipped from its shelf and rolled across the floor. Harry's eyes locked on it. It glowed, calling. Bellatrix's eyes followed. Her smile widened. "Yes," she purred. "Take it." Isolde's gaze sharpened like a knife. "Harry," she said, voice low, "break it." Harry's breath hitched. Breaking it meant losing answers. But giving it meant Voldemort winning. Harry clenched his jaw, lifted his wand, and fired. Reducto. The orb exploded. A voice filled the air, echoing, ancient, unstoppable. Neither can live while the other survives. Harry's breath caught. Fragments of prophecy screamed through the room like shards of fate. Isolde's eyes went unfocused for half a second, her occlumency snapping shut like a vault, capturing the words. Bellatrix shrieked in fury. "You filthy!" Sirius, clutching his side, looked up, eyes blazing. "Good." More footsteps thundered. Order members burst in Lupin, Tonks, Kingsley's spells firing, the battle turning. Bellatrix snarled, backing away, eyes still locked on Sirius with murderous delight. Isolde didn't let her. She moved again faster than Harry thought possible. She didn't fire a stunner. She fired a curse that cracked the stone at Bellatrix's feet, sending the witch stumbling. Bellatrix hissed, fury wild. Then she threw smoke and vanished into shadows, retreating with Death Eaters as the Order surged forward. The battle faded into echoes. Harry ran to Sirius, dropping to his knees. Sirius was pale, breathing hard but alive. He grinned weakly. "Thought you'd get rid of me that easily?" Harry's throat burned. Don't joke." Sirius winced. "Ow. Okay. No jokes." Lupin crouched beside them, face tight with fear and relief. "You idiots." Harry flinched. Isolde stepped closer, eyes scanning for threats even now. Sirius's gaze flicked to her, grim amusement flashing through pain. "Rosier," Sirius rasped. "Your trouble." Isolde's voice was cool. "You're welcome." Sirius laughed and hissed, clutching his wound again. Harry's chest shook with relief, so intense it almost hurt. Sirius was alive. Because Isolde had watched the shadows. Because she had moved first. Because she didn't hesitate when it mattered. And somewhere in the air, the broken prophecies' words still echoed like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. Isolde's eyes were distant for a moment. Harry felt her emotion through the bond cold, focused, locked. She'd memorized it. Fragments at least. Enough to matter. Enough to change everything later. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you all enjoyed this video. If you do, please leave a like, share, and subscribe.